This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Andrew Paterson, Michael Remis with you. Jumping on a little earlier than normal today because we will be heading down in just a couple of minutes to Canada Life Centre for the introduction of Jonathan Toews here in his hometown of Winnipeg after signing with the Winnipeg Jets. We'll also hear from Kevin Cheveldayoff, who will speak coming out of the first few days of free agency, albeit many players still remain unsigned around the league. But certainly the top tier of free agents have chosen their teams, and that, of course, includes Nikolaj Ehlers, formerly of the Winnipeg Jets, now of the Carolina Hurricanes. Of course, Nick, during yesterday's program, signed or came to terms, I guess, with the Carolina Hurricanes on a 6-year deal at an AAV of $8.5 million. Listen, there's no way to sugarcoat this, folks. It has been a tough 24 hours here around for Winnipeg sports fans. Yesterday during the show, we got the news that Ehlers, I mean, this was expected, but it's still, there was a finality to it for a lot of fans that maybe were holding out hope that Ehlers might pull a Brock Besser and decide to stay. That didn't happen. So we had a pretty disappointed chat yesterday on the program. And that just prepared us for more disappointment last night as the Bombers got absolutely steamrolled by the Calgary Stampeders in the Stampede Bowl. Just a miserable night for the Bombers, who did not look ready to go, and they were outclassed pretty much in every aspect of the game. And then to add insult to injury, Joey Chestnut only goes for 70.5 dogs and doesn't hit the over today in the Nathan's hot dog eating contest. But there you see it, the Stampede Bowl. Some pretty incredible celebrations in Calgary. But hey, they did. I think the event overall was a huge success for everyone except the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Pretty nice crowd. And the TSN gang looked amazing. Dusty, and how about Lapo's outfit as well? So we will get into that. Jeff Hamilton's going to join us a little later on. Our own Connor Hrabchak was at development camp today as it wrapped up. He's going to be down at the Canada Life Centre. Just depending on timing and how long this goes, we hope to have Connor jump on, talk a little bit about what transpired out at the Iceplex all week with training camp, with the development camp, I should say, as well as the scene from downtown with the introduction of Jonathan Toews. We will talk a little more free agency aftermath with John Matisz of The Score. And as I mentioned, we'll break down all the gory details of last night's game between the Bombers and the Calgary Stampeders with my partner from CFL 110, Jeff Hamilton, coming up a little later on. Listen, welcome to everybody in chat. Yes, you're coming in late. We're already here. We're already going, as I said, because we're going to be heading down shortly to Canada Life Centre. A huge thanks to the sponsors that make this program happen each and every day. Couldn't do it without our partners at Coolbet Canada, Princess Auto, Prairie Toyota Dealers, and Ben Moss, Manitoba Battery, Canadian Club, St. Patel Dental Center and Rowley's Transfer, Aikens Lake, F Apparel, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, Little Brown Jug, of course, the Winnipeg Goldeyes, Assiniboia Downs, Breezy Bend Country Club. Looking forward to being out of Breezy tomorrow for the RBC qualifier. Going to do some fun stuff with Coolbet out there. And, of course, we will get lots of fan feedback for Fans First on what we hear from Jonathan Toews and Kevin Cheveldayoff, and we will get to a why not question of the day for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray. Michael Remis, come on in. How are you doing after, as I tweeted out last night, a thoroughly miserable day for Winnipeg sports fans? A new day today, and obviously a pretty exciting bit of business that we're going to get to with Jonathan Toews coming up shortly.
Yeah, new day. A lot of excitement about Joey Chestnut winning his 17th yellow mustard belt.
Greatness.
Yeah, greatness up there with, he's a one-man dynasty, what they called him on the broadcast. He's up there with the LA Lakers in terms of all-time championships. And we have Jonathan Toews' exciting introductory press conference coming right up. But yesterday, one of the darkest days in Winnipeg sports history. Nikolaj Ehlers leaving for Carolina in free agency. Not entirely a surprise, but it doesn't feel real until it's signed on the dotted line and you see the Carolina Hurricanes tweeting out photoshopped pictures of him in the black and red uniform. And then more importantly, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers embarrassing performance in the first ever Stampede Bowl. It was just, 4 quarters of pain, watching Calgary raise that historic trophy at the end, introduced by the new commissioner, Stuart Johnson, and watching them celebrate doing country dances in the locker room after. Just gave me a sick feeling. And to add insult to injury, I mean, Glenn Suter and Dustin Nielsen on the broadcast talking at the end of the game, man, when have we ever seen 2 pick sixes from Zach Collaros before? And then they go, oh yeah, the Grey Cup, and start laughing on the broadcast. Insult to injury. Was a rough day, but hey, the sun rose today. It's a great day in Winnipeg. I'm excited for this press conference, but it was rough. It was a rough one. We took it on the chin yesterday.
Yeah, it was with the what's that meme of Floyd Mayweather where he's just throwing out the L's?
Yeah.
We took a few yesterday. Listen, the whole thing with Ehlers, and again, we'll talk about this a little bit more. It's been interesting to hear, what a few of the insiders have said what was behind this decision. I will say, I don't really think that this was a money thing. And, dating back to a couple months ago when we really started to get into this topic about Ehlers' future, I said this is going to come down to where Nikolaj Ehlers wants to play, how a team is going to be using him moving forward. There's a lot of talk that Ehlers was looking for maybe a quieter place that wasn't as white hot as the Winnipeg market is. Listen, if that's true, that's really disappointing and frankly pretty soft. I don't believe that to be the case, to be perfectly honest. I mean, the Winnipeg market, the Winnipeg media, this is not a difficult place to play. And I would actually put Ehlers maybe at the top of the list that has had the most favorable coverage from media and fans for the most part during his time here. This was never a guy that was ever really in the crosshairs at all. And I don't think that this city is such a microscope that this guy wasn't able to live his life. So to me, I do believe it is about the opportunity with the team that, frankly, I think he feels probably believes in him maybe a little bit more than the Winnipeg Jets did, or what he's capable of or where he fits in on the squad. Now, it is important to note, Remis, I don't think there's anything guaranteed. They do have a top line of Aho, Jarvis, and Svechnikov that's been pretty good. And if you're not there, you're probably playing with Jesperi Kotkaniemi on the second line. So listen, I think there's some similarities from his situation in Carolina to Winnipeg. But it's a fresh start for Nikolaj Ehlers. It was 10 amazing years here in Winnipeg. And while that chapter closes, we'll be beginning a new chapter, one of the most intriguing chapters, I would say, in Winnipeg Jets history, with the homecoming and return of the most decorated player really to ever come out of the city of Winnipeg, and that's Jonathan Toews.
Yeah, really exciting to have Jonathan Toews. It looks like that's going to be starting closer to 1:10 now. We will bring it live here when that begins. But as far as Nikolaj Ehlers goes, look, I think he played here for 10 years, and whenever they seemed to shuffle up the lines when things weren't working, he never did get an opportunity in the top line. I was always Connor Hrabchak and shuffling in whoever else was going to be there. Elliot Friedman did mention on Kenny and Rennie yesterday that he said, hey, we all know that he was frustrated with not getting that top line ice time. And if it was going to be on the left side. But I agree. You look at Carolina, and they already have a top line: Aho, Svechnikov, Jarvis. But I think they changed their lines up more. I mean, the Jets basically ran the same lines all year, and they didn't really change them. And I think he was just looking for a different fit. And Frank Cervelli throwing out the white hot market comment. I have never heard anyone refer to Winnipeg as white hot, and it was kind of comical. Like, maybe he bothered a lot when he left the house. I don't think he was able to live. I'm sure he was able to live his life like normally. I don't know. So I thought that comment was interesting, but we can look ahead to today. Jonathan Toews being introduced. Him putting out the Instagram post with his excitement for Winnipeg, growing up here. He followed his career for a long time. He hasn't played for a couple of years, so I think there are some questions about what he'll be able to bring to the lineup, but we'll see those answered when training camp and the regular season begins. But this is they're very exciting and almost feels surreal seeing Toews jerseys for sale at Royal Sports, or here's the thumbnail that the Jets have as we wait for them to go to it. There is Toews 19, and he is in Winnipeg. The Jets posted out on social media Toews, coming off the plane, being greeted by Mark Chipman. So I think it's, we've kind of turned the page on Ehlers leaving and looking ahead to the arrival of Jonathan Toews, Stanley Cup champion, gold medal with player of the term. But that was a while ago. That was 2010 us with Team Canada. It's 2025 now. So, hey, we've seen players at his age. We just saw in the Stanley Cup final, Brad Marchand, Corey Perry. We saw Gabe Landeskog come back after a layoff. If Jonathan Toews has put in the work, I'm sure he'll be able to come and contribute to the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, listen, we'll kind of get into fit and line combos, everything kind of later on in the summer as we get closer to training camp, as the dust settles coming out of free agency. Today I think is more about, hearing from Jonathan Toews, what he's been through, where he's at, how he's feeling, and why did he feel like resuming his NHL career with the Winnipeg Jets in his hometown right here in the Peg was the right decision for him. There was interest from around the league, and it did seem like the Winnipeg Jets really played the long game on this, dating back to the middle of last year when there was rumors or scuttlebutt that Toews may potentially restart his National Hockey League career. And I guess closer to the deadline, we found out that he was not going to be coming back last season, but was steadily working on coming back after a full off season, and obviously the Jets were able to get that done. So it is certainly an exciting day for the team and the franchise and the city, albeit coming off of a day that was certainly a downer, albeit expected over the last couple months. Just reading the tea leaves for Nikolaj Ehlers. Listen, with the presser coming up in just a minute, let me thank our friends at Rolly's Transfer for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Folks, if you have a move coming up, lean on the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba. For over 60 years, family owned and operated here in the Peg is Rolly's Transfer. You can check out Rolly's.com for their website. You can request an estimate. Use the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies. And, of course, the friendly staff at Rolly's will turn it around quickly with the great quote and get you locked in for the white glove treatment and service that Rolly's has been famous for now into their seventh decade. For all of your moving needs, make it Rolly's. Check them out online and request an estimate today over at Rollies.com. I know there's going to be lots of smiles down at Canada Life Centre today when Jonathan Toews is introduced. Speaking of smiles, if it's been a minute since you've been into the dentist, why don't you pop down and see our pal Dr. Terry and his great staff at St. Vital Dental Center at 167 St. Anne's. Got a beautiful new facility, state-of-the-art equipment, very convenient location with even more convenient free parking right in the back of the building, and a full service array of dental services, everything from cleanings and checkups to things like dental implants. You can find out more on everything St. Vital Dental Center has, taking clients and patients from 6 months to 99 plus. Find out more and make a booking at stvitaldental.ca and tell Dr. Terry, that the boys at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you. Big summer weekend coming up. Heat warnings in effect. It's going to be steamy. You're going to want to stay hydrated, and that might mean a trip to your local Manitoba liquor marts. Of course, we just celebrated Canada Day. What's more Canadian than Canada's original Canadian Whiskey Canadian Club? And now, for these summer weekends, make sure you grab a Canadian Club pack, which is a 12-pack with 4 CC Ginger Ale, 4 Citrus Smash, and 4 of the new half and halves, all with Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey. That is available now as well at your local Manitoba liquor marts. And hey, as we get out onto the water this weekend, many of you will be going out camping. You got to make sure you cover your bases when it comes to batteries. And nobody takes care of Winnipeggers and Manitobans when it comes to batteries like Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery, your local leader with the largest selection of batteries in town, all at the best prices. It is time to wake up. If you've been spending your money and time at the big box stores, what are you doing? Save up to $60 a battery for things like boat and camper batteries while shopping local at Manitoba Battery. You can see them in store, Logan Avenue, or their new location on Dovercourt Drive in the south end of the city. Give them a call or order online, and Manitoba Battery will deliver those batteries to you for free anywhere inside the city of Winnipeg. It's just that easy. Order online today, ManitobaBattery.com. So Remo, as we get going right now, we will talk Bombers later on when Jeff Hamilton joins us, and it'll be interesting to hear Hammer's thoughts on this press conference that's about to take place. The one thing I am intrigued about this presser, Remo, is how much of this is going to be Jonathan Toews and speaking about his journey, and then how much we're going to get from Kevin Cheveldayoff on Ehlers' departure and the new Nyquist ad and everything else that happened business-wise with the Winnipeg Jets over the course of the first few days of free agency.
Yeah, I'm also wondering about that. Normally after free agency, you'd hear from Kevin Cheveldayoff and you'd hear him say, answer questions about their plans, what happened, what didn't happen. I'm sure there will be a portion where the media will ask him about Nikolaj Ehlers leaving, about those negotiations, but I imagine the bulk of it and the opening portion of the questions segment will be questions about bringing in Jonathan Toews, the expectations for him this season, where he fits in to the lineup, how the signing came together. We don't really know. We haven't really heard from Jonathan Toews at all about. Well, we've heard him on read his words on an Instagram post, but you can hear them now about excitement for Winnipeg, growing up in the city, playing for the Winnipeg Jets. What he thinks he can bring to a team this year after not playing, and what he's been doing to prepare for this opportunity. So I'm excited to hear all of it. I'm sure it'll be a great press conference. I've seen pictures of them tweeting it out. Here's Dave Minuk of Illegal Curb. He's saying, hey, we're ready to go here. So we're just waiting for the thing to start. It's scheduled for 1, but stuff happens. These are often not exactly on time. So we're just waiting for them to step to the podium, and we will have it here coming right up.
Yeah. Any word yet? Have you heard on when Ehlers is going to speak to the Carolina media and kind of make his first comments as a member of the Canes?
I don't know, because today's 4th of July. I thought it was going to be today, but it's big holiday. Big holiday there today. Joey Chestnut Day. And, well, I'm sure it'll be after the weekend. Mike McIntyre did reach out to his agent, Andre Rufner, who said he'll have a message for the Winnipeg fans. Maybe he'll put out an Instagram post or something. That seems to be what players do. The Jets put out a really nice tribute video for Ehlers, so we'll wait to get some closure for him. And I do wonder if he talks about reasons why he stayed in Carolina and reasons for leaving the Winnipeg Jets. Okay, they rescheduled this for 1:15 now, so it's 1:14. We're waiting for the Toews press. I'll let you know.
Yeah, we got our eyes on it. As soon as this starts, we'll be going live to Canada Life Center, so we can get. Let's just move on from yesterday, officially, with the why not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray, because I hope the tone and the vibes in the chat are going to be going up once the festivities get going downtown and we hear from Jonathan Toews about coming home. But how are you handling yesterday, folks? Whether it be the Ehlers news, whether it be the Bomber game, or a combination of both, where does that one rank on the stinker days for Winnipeg sports fans? I can't remember one that was as disappointing as that in a long time. That didn't involve at least, a playoff game or something like that.
Yeah, well, I do see a comment in chat from, I think, Kyle D, or I think it was Kyle D, about the Stampede Bowl. Do we know? I'll tell you, halfway through that game, I'm like, okay, when is the 2026 schedule coming out?
We need a rematch.
We need a rematch, 100%. This can't be Calgary playing a different team. Maybe if they did every 3 years, you play like a series or something, but the Bombers need redemption. Can't go out in the Stampede Bowl. And seeing the videos of them in the locker room, one thing we didn't really touch on, saw Nick Lewis, former receiver for Montreal, tweet this out. He says, has anyone mentioned that adding Biggie, it's Adam Bighill, during the bye week, who knows the defense inside and out and how to dissect it? Football is a preparation sport, and when you're prepared, good things happen. But I don't want to take away from VA, Mills, and the wide receivers making all those plays. And they did interview on the field some of the Stampeders after, said what was key. Well, they said watching film, their preparation, and the bye week, certainly played a factor. I don't want to say the Bombers' bye week came too early because they were needed the bye week because they were tired from all these games. They had a bye week in week one. Just a strange schedule. You have your 2 bye weeks in the first 6 weeks of the season.
Well, to be honest, it looked like the Bombers had already checked out for the bye before the game started last night. I mean, did that look like a team that just their heads weren't in it anywhere close to where they usually are? I mean, this is such a professional operation. It was startling to see the way that they were dominated in every aspect, Remo. And listen, I think Mike O'Shea talked a little bit about the way they practiced, and there's some interesting comments on that from the post game. That, he sort of took some of the responsibility himself. But I guess somewhat it is human nature. They were feeling pretty good about themselves after the 3 wins. Figured they'd go in and take care of the Stamps and go into the bye week at 4-0. But listen, they didn't show up ready to play. So we'll talk about that more coming up with Jeff Hamilton when he is joining us. But it looks like the Jets are just about to begin the press conference with Jonathan Toews to introduce the homecoming of the most decorated player that this city has ever produced. And, of course, bringing all that experience to restart his career back where it all started, in Winnipeg, Manitoba, as a young boy out on the streets of St. Vital. Let's go to Canada Life Centre right now and turn it over to Scott Brown.
Jets. Obviously, there is a reason you are all here today. We don't normally invite crowds to hockey press conferences, let alone the Premier of the province and the Mayor of the city, or even my family, who now officially know exactly what I do for a living. But this isn't just another, we're not just announcing another signing today. That's because this isn't just another hockey player. Today, the Winnipeg Jets are welcoming into our family one of the most decorated hockey players in the history of our province, Jonathan Toews.
Hard to explain and put into words how special it is to come back to Winnipeg, but I think it takes it to another level when you come home and see the support here in Winnipeg. So thank you again.
Taken by McCabe. McCabe takes up the puck. Score! Jonathan Toews, the overtime winner. Here's Toews in career game 999. Here he comes. A drag move on dressing the D. And how do you like the backhand? Shoots it. And now Canada can win. The kid from St. Vital. And you've led the Hawks to a third Stanley Cup. Does it get any better?
No, it really doesn't.
So just briefly for a lot of you, this may be your first press conference, so here's a little bit about what's going to happen. First of all, we're going to have remarks from our Executive Vice President and General Manager Kevin Cheveldayoff. Then there will be a jersey presentation, at which time for members of the media and photographers we'll have a quick photo op. And we'll have another one afterwards if you want, but you can take advantage of that during our press conference here today. Jonathan will say a few words, and then we'll wrap up with some questions from members of the media in the audience. And then after that, we'll break. There'll be some scrums, one-on-ones with everyone here on stage for you, for members of the media, and lunch will be served. So without further ado, please welcome the General Manager of the Winnipeg Jets, Kevin Cheveldayoff.
Thanks very much, Scott. It's truly an honor to be here today. It's a very, very special day for not only True North, the Winnipeg Jets, but the city of Winnipeg and the province of Manitoba. As Scott said, one of the most decorated hockey players in Manitoba history is coming home, and that's an exciting thing. I remember, probably about 14 years ago when I sat here, we were in the back rooms, talking, Mark Chipman and myself, about me coming on board, and it was, the press conference that day for me. And one of the questions he asked me at that time, he said, "You know what, Chevy?" He said, "Do you ever think that Jonathan Toews would wear a Jets jersey? Would you ever think he'd come home?" And at that point in time, it was merely a dream or a concept. But last week when we finalized everything, I sent Mark a text, and it says Toews is a Jet, and that was an emotional feeling, and I'm sure it was emotional for Mark. So again, very excited, and welcome.
We're good? Thanks, guys. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Well, hi, Mom. Well, first of all, I'd just like to thank Mark Chipman, the man at this table, Chevy, Arnie, the Winnipeg Jets organization for welcoming me to this organization, to this family. This thing is, can everyone hear me anyways? Yeah. I just want to say it's truly an honor. I think the closer I got to really following through and making a decision, the reality started setting in how special it was, and all the memories flooded back from my childhood of just why and when I fell in love with the game of hockey. And it really all started by being a young kid going to the Winnipeg Arena and watching games and just being in that atmosphere. And I mean, it's hard to imagine, much about what's going on down on the ice, but just something about the action, the energy, and the whiteouts, and just being a part of that. Just, I don't know, I just caught the bug and became passionate for the game, and it's just surreal to be sitting here right now putting this jersey on. It's kind of like, you have these moments throughout your career where some things you kind of, I don't want to say you get jaded, but you get used to it and you kind of settle in. This is another moment that kind of brings me back to, like, it's that new feeling like you're getting drafted again. You're a young kid, so there's definitely that excitement and that motivation to come in. And obviously I haven't played in a couple of years, so I'm just really, really feeling blessed to be able to have the chance to play the game of hockey again at this level, but let alone for the Winnipeg Jets, and to be part of this team and this organization that you hear nothing but good things, and how the organization treats the players and the families, but also just the chemistry and the family feeling that the guys have in the locker room. So I think that that's something I'm really looking forward to. And lastly, just, I've made Chicago my home for quite some time, and have had the chance to travel all over these last few years, and just to have different experiences away from the game of hockey. And I just think it means so much. I think as you grow as a person, you kind of take a little bit with you everywhere you go, but there's parts of you that'll never change, and I'll always be a Winnipegger through and through. And it's a dream come true to come back and play in front of my friends and family, and be a part of this city once again. So it's an honor, and one that has really lit that fire again, that excitement for the game. And so I'm really looking forward to it. And thank you all for coming here today. And it's a quick reminder. I was making a joke earlier that I knew there would be some excitement. I kind of expected that, but my phone started blowing up the way it did when we made the announcement. The reality set in. I'm like, okay, this is there's a lot of pressure playing in the Canadian market, and a lot of expectation, especially with the way the Jets have performed the last few years. So, I'm excited to be a part of all that. So thank you guys.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. If the members of the media who are here today have a couple of questions, if they want to go ahead, Kelly Moore. If you want to project your voice with your, I guess.
We can hear you.
Jonathan, I'm not yelling at you. This is being live, so I want to make sure everybody can hear. Welcome home, of course, but over the span of the 2-year process, give or take a few months that it took to get here, what were the benchmarks where it really challenged your will to be able to do it? And then was there that aha moment when you realized, yes, I can get that?
That's a great question. Yeah, I appreciate that. I would say about, as some of you may know now, I've been outspoken a little bit about some of the things that I've done off the ice to try and heal and get healthy again. And I think, it was about a year ago, probably last summer, where I started really getting in a routine. And I think there was a time where it was challenging because I didn't have that. And I think as hockey players would all probably admit, we've all had very structured, routine lives since we're young kids, and all of a sudden I didn't have that. So that was kind of a challenge in itself. But as I started kind of realizing, with or without hockey, I want to take care of my body. I want to do the right things. I want to just let life go where it's supposed to go. I'd gotten to a point where I'd pretty much needed to let myself completely get off a timeline to return. So in my mind, I'd kind of accepted in a way that I might not play again. And I think that was a challenging thing to do, but at the same time, a very healthy thing to do, to just like wake up every day and not think of, this is where we're going. So, but I'd say probably as the year went along, I got stronger every month, and I was working out, taking care of myself, but also just enjoying life. And I'd say these last 5 or 6 months, things have really trended in a direction. Since I started skating back in February and March, those are the moments where I'm like, okay, still got the hands are still there, the feet will catch up, and things have slowly gotten better since then. So really happy about where I'm at, and just there's a new energy, a new excitement. I think especially when I hit the ice again, it was easy to compare how I felt out there to how it was a couple of years ago when I was kind of struggling to get through the season. So that in itself was just a huge positive, and just kind of has really reinforced this positive cycle in a way too. So I'd say over the last year things have trended and gotten better every month. So
Go ahead, Cam McIntosh.
Yeah, Jonathan, just kind of further to that, you've been open about it, and it's been reported that you pursued some unconventional therapy treatment, or I guess what we find in the Western world is unconventional.
Right.
Can you just explain the mindset that got you to that place to try that? Even, I guess, have the courage to try that, or the open-mindedness?
Yeah, well, I'll say this. I think when you try enough different things and they don't work, it's pretty frustrating. And I got to the point where like there was just no rhyme or reason. So I'm like, whatever shows up, I was just like, all right, I'll give that a shot. And I'd actually been introduced to Ayurvedic medicine through a friend, I guess, who is someone I started working with. And as soon as I started following that diet and some of the different like herbs and tinctures and just supplements that kind of complement the diet, things started changing really fast. And so I knew right away that there was something to it. And the guy that I was working with made the suggestion. He's like, you know what, I've had a couple clients who have gone over to India to this place that's very reputable. They know what they're doing, and they've been doing this for a long time. And when he first suggested it, I kind of like laughed him off. I was like, there's not a chance in hell that I need to do that. Part of my ego at the same time was like, that's just not necessary. Like I didn't want to entertain it at all. But anyways, that fall, I guess, or late summer, I had two commitments in Europe that I didn't really know what to do in between. I had about a month, so I was like, wasn't sure if I should come back to the U.S. or travel, this and that and the other thing. And I just decided, I'm like, why not give this a shot? So I ended up going out there, and I was really happy that I did. So it was just kind of by happenstance and one of those things that I just went with and was open to and never really looked back. So.
Go ahead. Last one, Sean.
Kevin, when you detailed that text that you sent, clearly some emotion as well. What's behind that?
Well, you know, again, I think it's the passion and the commitment that I feel to this organization and this province, and you don't always get an opportunity to fulfill something that was always in the back of your mind too. And you know, ever since Mark did ask that question, you know, you always sit and wonder, well, what if? And you know, again. I was fortunate to get to know John many years ago, and I was very fortunate to have a front row seat to see the impact that he had on that franchise. But his impact actually started in our organization, and I texted with Andrew Ladd after JT committed to us, and he congratulated me, and I said a lot of what Andrew put as the foundation as the first captain of this franchise, he learned from playing alongside, John. And to be able to have, the real thing join our organization, that was a very, very special moment for me.
Okay, everybody. I know the media's got some more questions, so after that we break into some scrums, which are going to be over by the backdrop. For the rest of you, thank you very much for coming. I hope you enjoyed a little glimpse into a little bit of hockey life away from the game. There is lunch served, so once again, thank you very much for coming. Looking forward to seeing all of you throughout the summer, and again, as training camp gets started at Hockey for All in September. Again, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, so there you have it. The introduction of Jonathan Toews as a member of the Winnipeg Jets. Pretty surreal scene, to be honest. I mean, for me, just seeing him put that Jet jersey on and realize that is the only other National Hockey League sweater that Jonathan Toews has ever worn after being such a mainstay for, a borderline dynasty in Chicago for his career. And obviously, he had talked about the health issues that he had been through, but smiles all around. Chevy, I mean, that's a big grin on GMKC there, as there should be. I mean, he and the organization obviously worked incredibly hard, played the long game, and they've got, as I said, the most decorated player in the history of this city in the National Hockey League coming back home to see what he can do to help move this Jets franchise forward after a President's Trophy winning season last year that ended in the second round of the playoffs. Scott Arneal's got a big smile on his face as well, and Jonathan Toews. And you can tell it was special for him. And listen, I can tell you it's special for the fans. I have just been, watching this, and looking at the comments in the chat, and it's very clear for many people, this is an emotional announcement. And I think it is for Toews as well. You know, to have his mom there, to know that he's going to be playing in front of friends and family, to hear the response that he had after the announcement was made last week, I should say, that he was coming home and going to restart his career with the Winnipeg Jets, seems to have really resonated with many here in this community. And Reem, I'll say this, you knew this was a big deal for the Winnipeg Jets. This was not just another press conference when you have some season ticket holders there, you have some fans there, you have the mayor and the premier of Manitoba. This is a guy that's done so much for this city and this province internationally. Now having the chance to come back and do it here in Winnipeg, this will be one we'll remember for a long time. And certainly right now, despite a disappointing day yesterday for Jet fans, funny how quickly the vibes can change when you have someone of the stature of Jonathan Toews choose Winnipeg and come back as he's been announced today.
Yeah, really cool moment when he can step to the podium and say, "Hi, Mom," and mentioning Scott Brown starting off saying, "Hey, this isn't an ordinary press conference." They had the premier there serving a lunch after. This is certainly a big deal, and you mentioned all of his accomplishments, showing the highlight package with the Blackhawks. I mean, the shootout with Team Canada, where he shot, 3 times, 3 goals, going head-to-head with Peter Mueller. I remember watching. Oh, that was I remember watching that live at like the Greyhound bus depot downtown. Anyways, what a bizarre place to be watching. I was going to UW at the time, so it was across the street. That's what you did. You couldn't watch it on your phone then like you can now anywhere. But it was a very exciting press conference, seeing him put on the jersey. Feels like, okay, he's part of the Jets. After yesterday's news, ready to move forward, and I'm excited to see him in a jersey in training camp, in games. A big moment for the franchise, and hopefully, works out and he's able to return to form after being away for a couple of years. And he talked about what he's done to heal, as he did take some time away from hockey.
I'm just looking at some of these comments in the chat, and let us know right now. Let's get into fan feedback. Hammer's going to join us in about 5 minutes. Listen, a lot of people, I think, were really excited and wanted to see what the vibe of this was, what we heard from Jonathan Toews. What do you think? Let us know in the chat right now. Your immediate reaction to the announcement and the introduction of Jonathan Toews. I do see. Jetto Tom, goosebumps, emotional. Oh my, Chris Jets fan. There's no place like home. Even T. Will getting into it. He sounds super excited. And then a lot of talk about the 15-year patch, which looks good, but we do wonder where the C's and the A's go on the jerseys now that is there, obviously, with Canada Life as well. But let us know in the chat. We'll get into some fan feedback in just a minute. And John Cooter says, true, he doesn't really need the letter. He will be a leader regardless. And the one thing I'll say, Remo, is that he there is a little bit of an aura to Jonathan Toews. This is a guy that's not always in front of the media. They called him Captain Serious when he was the captain of the Blackhawks for all those years. But you did get, the excitement that he had coming in, but also I think a real feeling of what has made him the incredible leader and captain that he was. Just with the way he spoke about his challenges to come back, but more so what he hopes to do coming back with the Winnipeg Jets when he's back on the ice in October.
Yeah, a lot of excitement, hearing him talk about watching Jets 1.0 games at the Winnipeg Arena, falling in love with hockey. I saw a nice comment from Liz in chat saying she was watching this press conference at the Dakota Community Center, now renamed after Jonathan Toews, as it should be. So shout out to her. But I think, a lot of excitement, and hopefully it works out. And we don't really know what type of player he's going to be, as he hasn't played, but you see that smile on Kevin Cheveldayoff's face in this picture. I think the Jets are expecting him to be a big contributor for them. And hoping he can hit a lot of those bonuses that are in his contract, which I feel like a lot of other teams saw that contract and was like, hey, we can do this. And you saw Jamie Benn sign a similar bonus structured contract. So very exciting day, huge press conference. They're serving a lunch after, which everyone in our chat is disappointed they they're missing out on, but they're doing some scrums. I know Connor is there taking part of those. He'll join us after, talk about what it was like being at the press conference. But I think all you can say is, surreal, exciting, and, especially after yesterday, which was a tough one to swallow.
Yes, exactly. We've moved on from a dark Thursday for Winnipeg sports fans between Ehlers and the Bombers getting their asses kicked in the Stampede Bowl. And it's funny what the difference a day makes. Now, listen, just on Ehlers, Cheveldayoff will be speaking in a scrum, as will Jonathan Toews, and we'll look to have that. Connor is there at it, so we'll have him join us after we talk with Jeff Hamilton, and we'll both hit the Toews news as well as last night's football game. But, moving forward, this is I think it's pretty easy to say this is the biggest free agent signing in the history of the Winnipeg Jets, and I don't think there's anything even close, to be honest. They've made huge re-signings of their own players. Obviously, the Thanksgiving double dip by Chevy a couple years ago with Hellebuck and Scheifele would be right up at the top of that list. But for a player coming into the organization, there is nothing close. And I will listen, granted, and I've talked about this ever since this became a reality, that there's a wide range of outcomes that could come for this. If the health doesn't hold up, it might not be the huge win that the club is hoping for. But I'll be honest, Remo, at this point, I'm putting my money on Jonathan Toews, and I've got an incredible level of confidence that he's coming in to not necessarily prove anything, because the guy has absolutely nothing to prove, but you can tell he still loves the game and still feels that he is a top-level elite National Hockey League player that can help teams win hockey games. And what he brings to a team, not a lot of players have. And I am definitely on the buying side of the buy-sell equation when it comes to Toews being a Winnipeg Jet next year.
Yeah, just looking, you talk about most impactful or biggest Winnipeg Jets 2.0 free agent signings. I go back, Ole Jokinen, July 2012, 2 years, $9 million. The other one, Matthew Perreault, was a big one, 3 years, $9 million, July 2014. Dmitry Kulikov, two-time Cup champion now, 3 years, $12.9 million, with $4.33 million AAV. That was July 2017. And Paul Stastny, 1 year, July 2021. In terms of, AAV, those are the biggest ones. Toews going with the $2 million base salary, but with bonuses, for games played that could take him over up to $7 million if the Jets do win the Stanley Cup. And
money well spent.
Yeah, which would be money well spent. But as far as it affect on the salary cap, the Jets can still spend up to the cap this year, and the overage would count for next year, or they can account for the overages and use those bonuses. Those bonuses, you could use part of it this year if it takes you to the cap. So, the Jets have added Gus Nyquist, added Tanner Pearson, added Cole Koepke. We'll see if they're done. I'm sure they're asking Kevin Cheveldayoff right now, but today is about Jonathan Toews, and very exciting press conference, and exciting to see so many people in our chat here today taking part in this conversation.
Yeah, and we'll have more from Canada Life Center. As I mentioned, Connor Hrabchak will join us to give us the lowdown on the scrums. And if we do have that, we'll probably play some of that for you a little bit later on. Hammer's joining us in just a minute, but let's get to fan feedback. Brought to you by Fans First, your number one spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market, where unlike all the other sites, there are no fees. What you see is what you pay when you're looking at tickets on Fans First, and it quickly became the number one spot for season ticket holders or people with extra tickets to sell them with amazing customer service. Fansfirst.ca is the site. Bomber games, more often than not sold out in recent history, also available at Fans First. Now, Dom Zappia says, for a team that doesn't really draft Manitoba guys, this is huge, getting arguably the best Manitoban ever. Ball Hockey Videos says leadership is everything. Let's see. Mike Wynn, legendary JT. Jed says, feel good story. Feel good stories don't make the team better. I think most people would disagree on that. I mean, they're certainly not mutually exclusive. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that are feeling good right now, and they feel that this team is going to be a heck of a lot better. And as I said, there's different levels of where Toews is going to help. I mean, we can talk about, on the ice, offensive production, defensive aptitude, winning faceoffs. And then there's a whole nother level. And I think we saw some of that aura from Toews just speaking, with the leader he is, the amount of respect that he's going to command. Like, I think it's going to be amazing for young players to be around him. I also think this is going to be huge for the Jets leadership group, for Adam Lowry, for Josh Morrissey, for Mark Scheifele as well. AJ says, I have 3 Jets jerseys with no name or number until now. Toews, 19. Thanks for the super chat there, Dale Sawchuk. And another one here is T. Kona Pauly. Now that the Ehlers debacle is over, LOL, has Ty Bauer re-upped yet? Much bigger news. T. Kona Pauly, always on the Tyrell Bauer. Did see him down at the Iceplex today. Our pal Bailey got a picture with him and threw that out on social media. Running Man says, Toews looks great. Way more, tons of people watching this between here and the Jets conference. And Brian Seek said that press conference was too brief. They will have more, and we will have more as we go. And then, of course, already excitement for the home opener this year, and Jonathan Toews getting out there for his first time as a Winnipeg Jet. Can't wait for the schedule. I mean, the return to Chicago is going to be another huge, huge game on the schedule. While we talk about a return of Carolina coming here for Nikolaj Ehlers reasons, that Winnipeg at Chicago first matchup with Jonathan Toews is going to be real special in the Windy City as well. Fan feedback brought to you by Fans First, by fans, for fans, no fees. Check out the site today at fansfirst.ca. All right, Hammers coming up in just a minute. Bombers on the bye week next week. July 18th will be the next time we're back at Princess Auto Stadium, and I imagine that'll be a team in a very ornery mood after what happened last night. Of course, Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Bombers and Winnipeg Sports Talk. Princess Auto is the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Pop by and see them, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, or out in Brandon. And, of course, you can shop online 24/7, 365 over at princessauto.com. I am going to be off the show next week because I'm going to be with Mark, our winner from the Health Sciences Center Foundation Lottery Auction out at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. And I'll certainly be firing out some pictures, hopefully of some big fish and some great times from Aikens. But this is a great time. If you're thinking about maybe getting a world-class fly-in fishing experience coming up this summer, there's a little bit of extra room this year because less Americans coming over the border. So, folks, if you're thinking about a July, later on in August or September booking, WST listeners 10% off right now. Go over to aikenslake.com. You can find out all the information on options and availability for the 2025 fishing season. And when you call and talk to Pitt or Julie, make sure you said you heard it on Winnipeg Sports Talk. I want to take advantage of an even better deal, 10% off right now to WST listeners, aikenslake.com. I promise to come back with some great pictures and some good stories when I'm back after the trip next week. And hey, do want to thank our friends at F Apparel for their support of WST. Guys, the summer's here, wedding season, right in the middle of it. If you need to up your menswear game, there's only one place to go, and that's F Apparel. Custom suits, starting at just over $400. Chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. Pop by and see him, 190 Smith Street downtown. And by the way, if you are in a wedding party or getting married yourself, make sure to talk to the guys at F about a special discount for wedding parties when you get your suits for the big day at F Apparel. Find out more online or book an appointment at F. That's EPH apparel.com. All right, let's welcome in the Hammer himself, Jeff Hamilton from the Winnipeg Free Press. Hammer, I do want to get to the debacle last night in the Stampede Bowl, but needless to say, the talk of the town right now was what we just saw. Jonathan Toews introduced as a member of the Winnipeg Jets for a guy that has only worn the Chicago Blackhawks jersey, and we've seen him do so many special things. Was a little surreal, I think, for a lot of people watching him pull on that Jet jersey down at Canada Life Center.
Yeah, as you mentioned, obviously somebody who's so completely attached to the Chicago Blackhawks, and particularly their success over those, dare I suggest, dynasty years. For him to put on a Winnipeg Jets jersey, just the whole just the whole press conference in itself, like the video to start off with, the setup in which they had them sitting and then standing and then sitting again. I'll be honest with you, it looked kind of like it. You're right. It is surreal, and it almost feels weird, right? Like it feels weird for a guy who's coming home to be putting on that jersey. And I think a lot of that, Huss, is, while it's awesome that he is coming home, I think the big question mark is what exactly are we getting with Jonathan Toews? And, besides the reports that suggest, his hands are there, his feet are there, all those things, you never really know until you see him in game action. But that doesn't stop the excitement and the obviously celebratory tone of the Jets organization, right? Like, I mean, they're talking about, how great this is. Like they've, landed on the moon in a lot of ways. And the thing is it is a great thing, but I think, Huss, like Jonathan Toews' future, what it could look like, I think all this depends on what you think you're getting from Jonathan Toews. You're either really excited if you think this guy is going to be the JT-19 that we saw dominate the NHL for a good chunk of his career, or you're looking at it as a guy in his late 30s who hasn't played hockey in 2 years. And while it's nice that he puts the home jersey back on, you wonder, how much of the load he can handle here. And it's certainly when you look at the offseason so far, how much he's going to have to hold.
Yeah, I mean, like it was, and again, we'll find out more from the scrum, but this is a guy, as I've said before, who has absolutely nothing to prove. And
totally.
And he has held himself to such a high standard throughout his career. I certainly lean on betting on Toews as opposed to against him based on the resume that he brings to it. But also the fact that, Jeff, this is a guy that has an incredible legacy, an incredible reputation. And I don't think he's so desperate just to get back into the routine of being on a team that he would even consider coming back if he didn't believe that he was going to be a very good version of himself. And, people in the chat can speculate one way or the other. We can expound on this program. The one person that knows Jonathan Toews the best is Jonathan Toews. And I don't think we're having this conversation. I don't think he's standing up there in his hometown coming back to the NHL if he doesn't truly believe that he can come back and be a difference maker and a real positive addition to this hockey club.
We talked about this when the news broke before his official signing on July 1st, Huss, is that, with all the options he could have had to the other teams he could have played for, he chose the one team really where he couldn't hide. He's not going to be able to hide anywhere, right?
Yeah,
he's going to be
not a quiet market.
This isn't this isn't one of those markets where you go in, you get the introductory, press conference, and then you kind of move on. Like, this guy has turned into kind of the star of the Winnipeg Jets, and because of his vast experience in this league, he's going to be asked to talk about everything. The Jets' good runs, the Jets' bad runs, the Jets' bad power play, the Jets' playoff, playoff issues, and that's a burden which he apparently is willingly taking on. And that, to me, to your point, suggests that this guy believes that he's more than capable of being a top six forward. But I also felt in his press conference that he kind of has this attitude of like, he doesn't need to prove anything, right? Like, it's like, oh, even the way he's talking about some of the, medicine that seems so measured and calculated from the outside. When you talk to him, he's just like, yeah, a friend, I guess you could call him, suggested I should, do this. And it was, it's like, why not? Like I had some time in between my 2 scheduled trips to Europe. Like that's verbatim, like, so you wonder, like, I'm not saying he's speaking laissez-faire about the opportunity, but there's that confidence, right? That captain seriousness that's come out in his press conference. And again, I think that's a good sign, because if he does come out and it is a flop, Huss, it's kind of like, oh, well, what happened here? Because it's a lot of hype heading in, and it doesn't help that the Jets have put on this, rolled out this event with his signing, to tee up high expectations even further.
Hey, listen, there should be high expectations. This is a team that won the President's Trophy. This is a guy that we don't need to go down his resume. And granted, yes, he had some health issues and he was away from the game. But this isn't just some veteran forward in the National Hockey League. This is Jonathan Toews. And to your point, Jeff, it is very obvious. And I don't think there could be, especially considering some of the things we've heard about the reasons why Ehlers left, I don't think there could be a better sign for the organization of the way that Toews is handled. I mean, Toews putting out that Instagram post of the reasons why and his roots here. I mean, if you're a Winnipeg person, how does that not sort of bring you in? And to your point, he knows exactly what he's getting into here and is embracing that challenge. I think that's great for how that projects, his level of confidence of what he'll be able to do. But also, listen, in this market, in any Canadian market, you want people that show up to work embracing the attention, the opportunity, how invested this team, this community is. And very few people will know that, as well as a kid that grew up here and has played in this building basically throughout the renaissance or the rebirth of the hockey club. And in some ways, the Jets came back to the National Hockey League in 2011. Jonathan Toews coming back to the National Hockey League with the Winnipeg Jets is one of the coolest stories that, again, could go in some different ways. But I think we're seeing a guy with a mindset that he's not only coming back to be back in the NHL, but to be a big part of a team in a city that he knows will make a real difference to everyone that's invested, including a ton of family and friends that are going to be at most of his games.
Yeah, I think you make a great point here, Huss. Like, regardless of how it turns out, how well, Jonathan Toews can play or perform after his 2 years off, it's okay to be excited about this information. Like, we deal with a lot of shit in our daily lives. It's okay to feel good about a guy who has such a, as you mentioned, stellar resume, easily the most decorated Manitoba hockey player, to feel good about that, right? To feel good that he chose his home, that he had options and came back here, right? We constantly hear every single year, particularly this time of year, how nobody wants to be in Winnipeg. We've seen that. We hear that. We've heard that since the Jets have come back, as you mentioned, in 2011. It's nice to see, a guy, regardless of where he's at in his career, choose the city that he grew up in, a city that's small, a city, again, that you can't hide, and to embrace that, right? I think that should be celebrated regardless of what we see from 19 this season.
Hey, speaking of the market, and I know I cracked about it being not a quiet market. Obviously, Jet fans got the bad news yesterday that Nikolaj Ehlers was gone and he's going to the Carolina Hurricanes. When we saw what the contract was, it was only 6 years. It was 8.5. I long said I wonder if the 8.5 would have gotten it done if the Jets put the Scheifele or the Connor Hrabchak offer on the table for Nikolaj Ehlers, albeit it being a lesser percentage of the cap today than it was when those were signed. But we're hearing that Elliot Friedman had mentioned that a big reason is, the usage. I kind of feels like Nikolaj Ehlers thinks that he's going to a place that really does believe in him. Frank floated out that, he was kind of looking for a place like Carolina where you could maybe be a little bit more anonymous and it was a quieter market. I'll be honest, I don't really buy that. And if that's true, it's kind of disappointing. Because I think this is a very easy market to play in, and I think Nikolaj Ehlers was a fan favorite. And I can't think of any time where the media was all over Ehlers pretty much at any point in his career. So to me, that would be soft if that was the case, and I don't believe it to be. But from your perspective, why do you think Nikolaj Ehlers today is a Carolina Hurricane?
Look, I'm not a mind reader, man, but I'll tell you exactly how I feel about it. I think he doesn't see the future of the Winnipeg Jets being Stanley Cup contenders. I think he looks at the Carolina Hurricanes. I think he looks at their roster up and down, all their pieces, and I think he looks in 6 years. He looks at 6 years of competing for playoffs with Carolina, right? Maybe 6 years of going to the Eastern Conference Final or better for the next 6 seasons. And I think he looks at the Winnipeg Jets, and I think it's going to be very interesting here, Huss, to see what Kyle Connor does, right? Does he envision a team that's going to get significantly better in signing a 7-8 year deal here? Like, where do the Jets look in 2 or 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, right? Like, is this the window that's going to stay open with some savvy moves in the future? Is this one that's going to slam shut in 2 or 3 years, right? Like, how much more we talked about this in the past. How much more can you expect from an Adam Lowry, right? How much more can you expect from Mark Scheifele even? I'm sure he's going to have great, another couple great seasons here. Certainly it doesn't seem like he's slowing down, but eventually he's going to get to his mid-30s, and we're going to see a lot of what we saw with Blake Wheeler just kind of fall off. So are you wanting to commit at 29 to 6, 7 more years here, 8 more years here, not really knowing what that future could look like? I mean, that's just my thought. I mean, it could be a lot of things, right? It could be exactly those things that you said. Maybe he does want a quieter kind of town, right? Maybe he can't go out in Winnipeg and not be recognized. He can't be anonymous. Maybe he likes that privacy. Maybe he's thinking about a future family and having kids and all those things. Maybe he's thinking about his lack of usage, right? To your point about media. No, he was a media darling. People liked him as a person. Media liked him as a player. If anything, they wrote endlessly about how much more opportunity he should be given. So
the biggest critic of Nikolaj Ehlers during his entire time here was Nikolaj Ehlers.
Yeah, there you go.
Ehlers would kill himself in these interviews, and the media would be like, "Wait, Nick, come on,
take it easy, man." No one says that about Nikolaj Ehlers. Not even Nikolaj Ehlers. It's like, but yeah, I mean, it's a great point. But it could be all those things, right? It could be a change of scenery. Maybe he wants to grow up somewhere else. I don't know. That's maybe he sat down and was wowed, right, by Rob Brindamore, right? Maybe he was wowed by what they were doing. And maybe he likes the mix of Europeans on that team, right? Maybe there's a bunch of different things that he likes. So, it could be anything. I give you my opinion, but only, as your point stands, only Nikolaj Ehlers knows why he wanted to leave.
Yeah,
Winnipeg.
Listen, I think the Carolina Hurricanes, especially knowing that they had tried to trade for him in the past, I think probably did the best job of proving that they really did believe in him, and they saw him as a real key, part of their team moving forward. And
interesting 6-year deal, though, eh? Like for a guy who's 29 years old, like you kind of chopped off those 2 years.
There's no way he didn't leave money on the table taking this deal. I don't think. I mean, I'm sure there was probably a higher AAV out there, and it is my opinion. I mean, this is not sourced or anything like that, but I would be stunned if the Winnipeg Jets were not willing to do a similar deal
on that
probably
point, though,
had one more year on it.
Do you think the Jets have to come out and say they offered him that? Like, I feel like they do. Like, I don't feel like that should be a secret. If you offered Nikolaj Ehlers that kind of contract, like, I think, you don't have to air your dirty laundry or get into negotiations. But if you're going to have a GM come up and say that you want to offer him a deal that makes him a Jet for life, and he signs a 6-year deal for $8.5 million, like, again, you don't have to waste a ton of airtime on it, but I do think you need to be upfront about what you offered Nikolaj Ehlers.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it might be, to a lot of fans, it might be in their best interest. I think the way they operate, I think they wish Nick luck and they move on and say, hey, we were in it. We made a very competitive offer.
Things, though. Like, I don't think this would be unprecedented stuff necessarily with the Jets even.
No. I mean, listen, I think what you'll probably hear is we were there with a similar offer. It'll probably be a term, something like in the ballpark. I don't think we'll ever get numbers. I mean, they're not going to do that business in public. But to me, it comes down to things outside of money. It was perceived opportunity, I think perceived belief in the player. And this is why when we were sort of asking, I asked a few people yesterday, I mean, like, why did this happen? I mean, because by all accounts, he was a happy guy in Winnipeg. That's why I don't really believe the stuff about the market. To me, this is more of a hockey decision. And listen, I think Scott Arniel did yeoman's work last year. getting Nick more involved in the team, giving him the opportunity on the power play that made the team the number one power play in the National Hockey League. And while, running pretty hard with that top line of Connor and Velarde, trying to put him in situations that he really does feel valued and, knows how important he is. To me, where this started, frankly, was the 2 years under Bones. And Bones did a lot of great things. I mean, when you look back, the Bones era was an absolute success of changing the culture in the team and, getting them on the path going the right direction that, was 4th overall and then obviously last year. But I can't help but think that at times, I think Bones's maybe perceived lack of confidence in Nikolaj, especially when we're talking about things like power play, was something that Scott Arniel had 1 year to do it. He did his best to try to maybe turn that around. But to me, the breakup started not last season, but the previous 2 years. And God knows that was a topic on this program and in Jet Conversations for a long time about where Nikolaj Ehlers really fit in to the Jets when Bones was the head coach.
It does really feel like a little too late kind of situation, right? I mean, even his resurgence, if you want to call that, in the playoffs, right? His kind of slayed that dragon of not being able to perform in the playoffs. Maybe if that would have happened again, maybe he would feel like he was cursed in Winnipeg, right? That didn't happen. In fact, he played a massive role in the game tying goal in Game 7. So, and it's that clip, to be honest with you, that really surprises me in all this. I watched that clip and I think to myself, why would you want to leave now? This is a team that's got the pieces. It's, I know I talked about the deeper picture here with this team, but at least in the next few seasons, you got to make the argument that this team's going to be competitive. And I know a lot of people look at the offseason. I think it is underwhelming when you look at the pieces that the Jets picked up, particularly around aging veterans, when I think a lot of fans want to see some of the younger prospects get that opportunity. But, I think it's important to realize that a lot of people had the Winnipeg Jets as a playoff team heading into last year or playing, expecting great things out of them based on their roster. And what did they do? They swiftly won the President's Trophy. So, I don't think you can count this team out. I think they do have a structure that works. They, and I particularly under Scott Arniel and before that, of course, Bones and bringing in those, bringing in that kind of effectiveness on defense and structure on defensive side of the puck. So at the end of the day here, Huss, I think it's one of those things where you got to take a wait and see approach here. And while it certainly hurts to lose a guy like Nikolaj Ehlers and to see a contract like that and not think that was easily matchable here in Winnipeg. But at the same time, there is opportunity here for other players. And, you need to see some of those guys take the next step here. Because this team is younger, and there is some guys that are turning the clock on age a little bit, and you can ask that question, how much more we can ask from these people. There are a handful of players who you can ask for more and will need to give more if the Winnipeg Jets want to repeat anything like they did last year.
Yeah, this is interesting, and Scott Arniel was just speaking, and again, we'll talk to Connor. He's in all these scrums. He'll join us in a bit from the rink. Scott Arniel and Nikolaj Ehlers signing with Carolina. Quote, he called me yesterday, almost in tears, said they have a great conversation. Ehlers ultimately told him he needed a change of scenery, and it was nothing personal about the team or the city. And you know what's tough? I mean, listen, I'm a huge advocate for what Ehlers has done for the Jets. Listen, the guy was an incredibly dynamic player. He was productive. Sure, did he have his warts? Absolutely. But that's a guy that you want on your team. But, when I saw the video that the team put out kind of thanking Ehlers for his time once it was announced yesterday.
Him walking off the stage at the end or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, it was the fact there was a real connection from Winnipeg Jet fans to Nikolaj Ehlers. He was a guy that you love to cheer for. He was exciting. He sold tickets. But he was one that there was a real special connection. So while from a hockey standpoint, it'll be up for other guys to take advantage of the ice time and the opportunity and the spot in the top six and the spot on the power play. And I think a lot of that can happen, although easier said than done. But it was the emotional connection from a city and a fan base to a player over the course of a decade. I think that ended up making, even though we all knew that it was coming, we all knew that this was coming. We heard it yesterday during the show, and there was a deep sense of loss and disappointment amongst Jet fans. And I do know that, as we were mentioning, that Jet game in Chicago will be huge for the city of Chicago and Blackhawks fans to welcome Jonathan Toews back. It'll be a special night and a tough night, I think, for a lot of fans when Nikolaj Ehlers comes back in the black and red of the Hurricanes to Canada Life Center at some point next year.
Yeah, like I said, he was a media darling. He was loved by hockey fans, and he genuinely loved the city. Like, the way he spoke, you could tell it was genuine. He was honest. As you mentioned earlier, Huss, he was raw about his own, in his own evaluations about his play, right? He was super hard on himself. And I think that's ultimately what fans here in Winnipeg want is a good effort and accountability. And there's been times throughout, the Jets' not so glory days, if you will, that there lacked accountability. But then there was the Paul Stastnys of the world, the Nikolaj Ehlers of the world, who kind of brought clarity and a bit of humility to the team. And to lose that kind of sucks. And I mean, the other obvious point is that he was the city's, right? They drafted him. They made, it was and it came at a time, Huss, where it was like the Jets were building and they were going to eventually be something. It was the Patrick Laine era, right? And them being close friends and how much fun they had together and whatnot. So yeah, like it's okay, just like it's okay to celebrate the arrival of Jonathan Toews. It's okay to mourn, if you will, the loss of Nikolaj Ehlers moving on, right? So that's the beauty and chaos of being a sports fan. And these guys, you get to know them, you dedicate your time and money to watching them, and you want them to kind of stay with you forever. And when they don't choose you, it feels like a little bit like a breakup to fans. Like, he's leaving, and as you've mentioned that quote, right? Like, he called me and it's, it's not you, it's me kind of thing, right? Like, the tears are flowing, like this feels in a lot of ways, Huss, like a breakup.
It is.
And like in a weird way, like a new beginning with Toews. Like, that press conference had this total vibe of like, this is a pinnacle moment at the same time where you have a bit of heartbreak with a fan favorite walking and choosing to go to another city to play for another team.
Hey, a conversation for another day on this program.
Mm-hmm.
And especially once we get into the season and, the Jets play the Carolina Hurricanes. I do have some doubts about the fit of Ehlers in Carolina. Their style of play, what Brind'Amour asks of his players. Now, listen, maybe they're going to try to utilize him in a different way and believe that he brings something that they don't have, that they can do it. But I mean, what are they known for? They're known for the most relentless forecheck in the National Hockey League. I mean, that's the one club that Nick doesn't really have in his bag. And certainly not a physical player at all. And, I think as they look to beat the Florida Panthers, who are the standard right now in the league and certainly in the East, their ability to raise that level of something. Although Nick certainly can stand up for himself and hang
I was just going to say, I wouldn't be suggesting that the guy's soft. I mean, he's the one, I'd say he'd be among the top 5 on the team to scrap somebody, So
it's not as much about scrap. Well, listen, you don't want that happening because his record.
You think he not has the skill set to at least learn that? And if he can, he's got the speed, he's got that, that shiftiness for sure. And he has a bit of tenacity, right? Like, there is a level of tenacity to him. When you mix those two things together, but to your point, I also think it could be a shift away from that style in Carolina, or a shift more towards, building on the offense. This is a group, a team that traded for Mikko Rantanen and then lost him, and clearly needs to have that goal scoring prowess on their otherwise defensively stingy team. So maybe Nikolaj Ehlers, that's the selling point to him is, look, man, we want exactly what you bring to the table. We want to lean on you for offense. And he's saying, right on, I'll play in the Eastern Conference where it's a little less, rigid again, compared to the West. And I'll see if I can't tuck away some points and be that point per game player that everyone knows I can be.
I do hope for Nick's sake that they do find a spot for him with Aho on that top line. Because if he leaves here from Winnipeg because of usage and not being on the top line. And they keep rolling with Aho and Svech and Jarvis on the top line. And Nick is paired up on the second line with Jesperi Kotkaniemi. There might be some remorse at a certain time on all of that. But again, I think everyone, for the most part, wishes him well, appreciates everything he did for the team in the city. And again, it's a new day today with Ehlers, a Hurricane, and Jonathan Toews, now a member of the Winnipeg Jets. Also feeling fortunate today, Jeff, that we had all this big hockey news to get to, which meant a little less time talking about the massacre in the Stampede Bowl last night. Who the hell were those guys wearing the blue and gold uniforms? Because that didn't look like the Winnipeg Blue Bombers to me.
No, and you know what? It just continues to muddy the waters, Huss. I think, you can have an off game. There's no doubt about it, right? We've seen it.
Oh, and they did.
And the Bombers, and that would, is that an off game, or is that a better picture of what the Bombers are after, beating the BC Lions in back-to-back games, one of which had a Jeremiah Masoli behind center, and an Edmonton Elks team that is clearly struggling, right? Still searching for their first victory. Like, how good are the Winnipeg Blue Bombers is suddenly the question being asked. I thought it was insult to injury a little bit too, Huss, when Adam Bighill tweeted out afterwards, like, first win for the Stamps. I was like, double ouch for Winnipeg fans, but good for Adam and playing that, social media kind of game. But yeah, the game was awful. I mean, it was not the offense we saw a week earlier, that's for sure. And, you got to give some credit, got to give lots of credit, obviously, to Calgary. And they took full advantage of that bye week and studying for the Bombers, and it clearly works. So that there's that element. But then, we talked about this in CFL 110 earlier this week about, the Bombers. It wasn't a Sunday game or even it wasn't a Saturday game and then a Thursday game. They played on back-to-back Thursdays. So they had enough time for rest, recovery, like any other week, and also to plan. So obviously Calgary had a little more extra time, and Dave Dickinson is a good coach, and you're seeing a Calgary Stampeders defense that is essentially completely overhauled, right? I don't think they have any starters from last season. Or if they do, it's like a couple on defense. So that defense has been an absolute monster. And, we've talked about Vernon Adams Jr. and his lack of passing touchdowns. He got into the end zone. He threw 2 balls into the end zone and played a clean, a mostly clean game. Whereas Zach Collaros had 2 pick sixes, right? You're not going to win many games where you have pick sixes. And I think probably the most disappointing part, Huss, is the Bombers were never really in this one. Really right from the get-go when Calgary, made their mark early. So I just, I think it's not concerning. You're not ringing any alarm bells or anything. It's 3-1. I mean, the Bombers aren't going to be feeling great as they head out in the bye week and probably are going to be pretty grumpy. So, we'll see what happens here. But I do think Calgary moved up in my books, at least personally, and how they were performing. Like I said, that's a legit defense. And when you have a running game behind like Dietrich Mills is doing this year, you're able to, look at Vernon Adams' stats. Those are the kind of stats you expect from Winnipeg's, right? Like Clara should be in and around the 220 to 250 passing yards, and the run game should be, slicing and dicing to play complementary football. But that's exactly what the Stampeders did, and congratulations to them in winning the first annual Stampede Bowl.
T-Shoe in the chat said that was a team putting in 3 hours before vacation. Like it did have the element of like the Friday afternoon before you get out of the office for 2 weeks.
You show up and it's a substitute, and it's just there's a TV at the front of the classroom.
Exactly.
You're putting your feet up.
I mean, listen, that was just nowhere close to the standard. And we heard from Mike O'Shea afterwards saying, "Hey, we got our asses kicked." He kind of owned some of it with the way they handled the practice week, but it just wasn't a professional effort from the Bombers, knowing that they were going on the bye week. And to your point, credit to Calgary. That defense is a unit. They look great, and VA had a real strong game. And obviously, it was an off night for every aspect of the game. Wasn't very good for the Blue Bombers. You mentioned the 2 pick sixes, though. To me, the first one was the game. The Bombers were still very much in it at that point, and that one just sort of compounded where they were going, and Calgary never looked back. I don't really want to go there, but I feel like I almost have to ask the question, at what point do we get somewhat concerned about Zach Collaros? He has come up small in the biggest moments in the last couple Grey Cups. And listen, I think he looked great last week, and there is glimpses that, he still has it. But, man, that second pick six, it wasn't a great decision. But it was also the fact that, I don't know, it kind of looks like some of the zip is off the ball right now. And I guess that happens, as you go through your career.
Huss, you're riding the waves right now. You're talking what would you have said in your shows if we were to pull your shows up right now following last weekend's dominant win over the Elks? We would be talking about
great, but you expect that. That's the job.
I think that, to your point, I think that's the high expectations that Zach Collaros has on him. He's human, right? He's gonna have off nights, and to your point, I guess, is it concerning? At what point is he going to fall off? I think he's probably not getting better arm strength year to year. So I think, if you're suggesting these might be early signs of a guy who's creeping, is at his mid-30s, I still don't think it's super old as a quarterback or for his position. But I do, there are moments where he doesn't look at, maybe there is an excuse. And I'm not trying to make excuses for him. I just don't think you can look at a one game and against, as we both looked at, a unit of a defense, might be one of the best defenses in the league right now, and say that he's lost a step. That could show. We'll see here as the season plays out. I do think that Zach Collaros is, while he's signing multiple year deals, I think he's a year to year guy. I don't think I'm not saying he's looking to hang him up after this year, but who knows? We'll see what happens. But I do think there's plenty left in him, and I do look at the performance against the a good Calgary Stampeders defense is still very much the exception to the rule of him playing pretty consistently week in and week out.
Yeah, I do wonder whether they'll be a little bit more careful on some of those out routes.
What about getting Strevler in more? You know what I mean?
Listen, never mind getting Strevler in more. I'll just ask you this. The game was over in the fourth quarter. Now, there still was a lot of football left to be played, but it was done. What did you make of keeping the starters in as long as they did? And listen,
it's Mike O'Shea thing, man. They would never like that. Mike would view that as completely giving up. That would be loser mentality to him. And while I do think there's certain examples, Huss, particularly when you're winning in games, not so much when you're losing. And I do think it's a pride thing. I think all those starters want to be in. I don't think anybody's going wow, why are we still in the game? And that's, for better or worse, that's what Mike O'Shea does. The guys will play throughout the game. I'm more, as a journalist, more frustrated when I'm covering a team that's up by 3 touchdowns with 5 minutes left, and you have a backup quarterback that so desperately needs, important game reps that he would never otherwise get, and you keep in your guy risking injury and all those other things. To your point, I do think that also applies when you're getting your ass kicked, and if you're not getting the best out of your starters, what's the difference if you put other guys in and they're still benefiting from those reps? But I do see that as a sign of defeat and giving up, and I just don't think that's the Mike O'Shea way by any stretch.
Yeah, listen, I'm not going to go crazy about it, but I'll tell you what, if Dalton Schoen is hurt, and this affects his availability for that Calgary game or beyond, based on garbage time at the end of the Stampede Bowl, that'll be a very, very difficult pill to swallow. And to be honest, I think there is some advantage to maybe get some guys that aren't playing just to get them out and get some reps, while you make sure that a couple of your top players are not taking any unnecessary hits that may affect their availability moving forward. That being said, to the winners go the spoils. The Stamps had their big party, winning the first ever Stampede Bowl, and the Bombers go on to the bye with a bad taste in their mouths after getting whooped for the first time this season out in Calgary. Listen, I guess I was going to say, are you ready to get on the waters tomorrow? But based on our conversation last week, the the garage sales are already done now because we're past Thursday night?
They've just been picked apart, Huss. You know, like I'm trying to have a good Friday here. I had a late night last night, and here you are just bringing me back to life here, but ruining my excitement
Friday
about
night
tomorrow.
runs?
You know,
Friday night runs around town?
I don't know. Yeah, it's become like I said, it's become an all-consuming thing. I'm going to be out there for a couple hours tomorrow. I'm just, it's not all about the fines. It's about getting out, getting the steps in, talking to people, and just seeing a lot of, whatever, having a good time.
You need to fire up some of your finds on Insta. I mean, that's what these apps are made for. I mean, Jeff Hamilton's garage sale bargains for another weekend.
The thing is I don't I don't know if we've talked about this much, and again, I see the viewers just absolutely running away from this, but I don't buy a lot of things. That's the thing. Like, I'm kind of like, I'll buy a book, lots of great place to pick up books. But mostly I'm looking for interesting finds. I look for like antique stuff. And that's the frustrating part about the Thursday and Friday stuff. People going, because that's the people that, it's all the eager people for whatever reason they have their eagerness for. And
Expert nights. They know what they're looking for.
But the thing is, I think those people also hold tight at the garage sales. They don't just sell off, because they know that, those people also like to barter, right? That's a big part of the garage game. You'll never see somebody barter, a 50 cents to a quarter, like the best out there. So they don't give away things right off the bat. So when you do show up on Saturday, end of day, or Sunday, usually, it's like, take it if you want it.
It's your boy Bruce Hammer. Get in the Discord with those garage sale finds. And Chris, Jet fans, Jeff's a great guest with the Star. Nice stuff for you. Hey, have a great week. Remo will be holding it down on CFL 110 with Jeff while I'm out at Aikens next week. And then we'll be back to keep things going. But great stuff. Ugly game last night, but a fun Friday afternoon hit. Have an awesome weekend, pal, and I'll see you when I'm back the following week.
Yeah, right on, man. Enjoy that. That's going to be an awesome time. I hope you get some great weather, and I hope the fish are biting out there. I'm sure they are. So have a great one, and I look forward to holding down the shop with Remo. I'm excited for that. Tuesday, you know where to find it. Winnipeg Sports Talk, the next edition of CFL 110 with Jeff Hamilton of the Winnipeg Free Press. Take it easy, bud. All right, so it sounds like the scrums have finished up at Canada Life Center. We are going to just do a little free agency wrap with John Matisz of The Score coming up. But I think Connor's going to jump on in just a few minutes. Let me thank our friends at Royal Sports for their support of WST and remind you all that now that it is real and Jonathan Toews is a Winnipeg Jet, you can get your hands on a Toews 19 jersey at your number one fan headquarters for all your Winnipeg teams, Royal Sports at 750 Pembina Highway. They've been putting a lot of 19s on jerseys as of late, and they can do one for you. Get on down to Royal Sports today. You can check out their great bomber section as well with tons of exclusives that you won't find anywhere else. And, of course, we're loving summer right now. Soccer, softball, baseball, tennis, running. Tons of great bikes, e-bikes as well. The big Yeti cooler section, all waiting for you at Royal Sports. 750 Pembina Highway. Check them out on Instagram as well, at Royal Sports Winnipeg, for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. Well, if you went to Boston Pizza last night to watch the Stampede Bowl, the game was a dud, but at least you had those ice-cold schooners, world-famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, and all the great treats on the new summer menu available for you. Great weekend of CFL action. We got Friday Night Football tonight between the Ticats and Argos, and then BC and Montreal, and Edmonton looking for their first win. If you are heading out to catch the Canadian Football League, do it at your local Boston Pizza. And hey, staying at home, get the great taste of BP by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. All right, continuing the program, we will have marbles. We'll let you know about that in a bit. John Matisz to come, and an update from downtown with Connor Hrabchak. Right now, though, let's give a big cheers on a Friday to Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
Just checking out the chat. Yeah, it is kind of funny that Little Brown Jug's iconic 1919. Now there's a big 19 in town. You know what, Remo? Let's just while we wait for Connor to join us, and he will in just a couple of minutes. What have you been seeing the reaction to the Toews presser online from Winnipeg Jet fans outside of our chat?
First of all, huge, like massive crowd there. Like Connor could barely even get a spot. Look how far back he is in this press conference. I see Murat in there, Dave Manouk, Ken. I mean, this is one of the rare ones where you have news media and sports media in the city there. And then Connor, who said he's hopping in right away, says, quite the media scrum here for Jonathan Toews. He talked about becoming a Winnipeg Jet, his journey to return, and the phone call to Gustafsson for number 19. He said he has a lot of respect for Gustafsson giving up his number and not something he takes lightly. So a lot of questions in the chat about the compensation for number 19. I don't know if we'll get those details, but something interesting. And I'm just going to load Connor in here right now.
Beautiful. All right, so we'll bring in Connor from Canada Life Center. Then we'll welcome in John Mattis while we load up marbles, hit the Coolbet lines, and might go a little later than normal on this special day with the introduction of Jonathan Toews. All right, Remo, let me know when we're ready to go with Connor, and we'll bring him in. I do see a lot of people saying I definitely need to get a Jonathan Toews jersey. A lot of love for Royal Sports as well. Yeah, you can definitely have some fun and spend a little bit of cash there, especially around this time of year with so much fun going on in the summer. All right, let's get down to the rink and welcome in Connor Hrabchak, our own Connor, who was there. What's going on, dude? How are you? Busy day today, starting off at development camp and finishing off with probably the second biggest press conference in the history of the Winnipeg Jets after only the return of the National Hockey League in 2011.
Yeah, let me tell you, it was well attended, Huss. It was more attended than a Tuesday night game against Columbus, that's for sure. It was packed here down at Canada Life Center today. The scrums are some of the biggest scrums I've ever been in. And yeah, Jonathan Toews, Mark Chipman, Kevin Cheveldayoff, Scott O'Neill, everyone was here, family and friends of Jonathan Toews. Season ticket holders that won a bit of like a ticket pack were able to come and see the introductory press conference. So a lot of excitement around the building today. And I'm just glad I could cover it all. It's been a whirlwind past like hour.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, listen, I mean, we played the main portion of the press conference, the official introduction, the scene, which still seems surreal, of Jonathan Toews putting a jersey, not the Chicago Blackhawks on, and it being the Winnipeg Jets. Then went into the scrum. We saw your picture. It was absolutely bananas there. Fill us in on what we got from Toews once the media broke out and what was sort of asked, and what you got out of him in addition to the comments at the beginning of the presser.
Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of questions about, his journey to get back to the NHL in the main portion that you guys carried on your show, but there was definitely more of that in the scrum setting. And yeah, you've got the photo up there. I mean, easily the biggest scrum I've ever been a part of. People are excited, that's for sure. And yeah, Jonathan Toews, he's excited to get back to being a Winnipeg Jet, not back to being a Winnipeg Jet, back to playing hockey, being a Winnipeg Jet. And yeah, he talked about, putting his ego aside and trying this new healing journey that brought him back to the NHL, the excitement to play in front of family and friends, his past experiences in Winnipeg, playing against the Winnipeg Jets all those years. And he said he would put money on the board and those games would always mean a little bit more. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of excitement for Jonathan Toews to come back here to Winnipeg. And he's ready to go. And clearly, as you saw from that media scrum there, a lot of people, media and fans alike, are excited to see him.
Yeah, and credit to the Jets for doing a great job. I mean, this is a guy that absolutely deserves this sort of welcome home. But, you mentioned all the people there. I mean, this was a big day for the city and the province. I mean, the mayor is there. The premier was there. And as much as, we're going to focus on what this means on the ice, for this organization to be able to pull this off and have Jonathan Toews choose Winnipeg, a huge credit to the team for where they put it, because this guy's not coming back to be on a team that, doesn't have an opportunity of doing things in the postseason. But it also speaks to just the importance of this day. And let's face it, early July here in Winnipeg, we're not usually getting these big press conferences right after free agency. And through a number of unique circumstances, we just had one of the biggest ones ever. And it seems like he is embracing this opportunity. There's a lot of talk about Ehlers needing a change of scenery. And some people, I don't necessarily buy into it, that it's a really loud market. I mean, you want to have people that come back, know the attention, know how excited this is going to be, know the pressure that comes along with it, and embrace that. And that's certainly sort of what I got from Jonathan Toews in his introductory presser.
Absolutely. And, Scott O'Neill talked about it a little bit as well, Kevin Cheveldayoff, where athletes are kind of a different breed. Like, if Jonathan Toews thinks he can come back and make an impact at the NHL level, he is absolutely going to do everything in his power to do so. And Jonathan Toews also even talked about kind of the ego, putting it aside and kind of coming to terms with the fact that he might not ever play hockey again. That was a real realization for Jonathan Toews over these past couple of years. And then when it started to feel real, he started to get the itch again, and he was ready to go, and he was ramping up, started skating, all of those things. It was a big turning point for him. And he said the skates were going great when he got on the ice. But yeah, I think there's excitement from a lot. That's the word of the day today from everyone that we heard from. And I think it's for good reason, because he's the most decorated player that, the city has ever produced. And now he's going to put on a Winnipeg Jets sweater. He says it's surreal to wear the jersey. So there's a lot of excitement going around here. And I will just say that he seems very determined. I know his nickname was Captain Serious. He had a very serious look on his face when, asked about his journey or asked about what he thinks he can provide. He even mentioned Huss. He said he watched the playoffs this year and watched a lot of players that are roughly his age make a big contribution to their playoff teams. So Jonathan Toews, like we've been saying on WST, was tuned into the playoffs and seeing players, 37, 38 years old, making big impacts in the postseason, and he hopes he can.
Well, I love it. I mean, certainly not couching any expectations, leaning into it. And that is exactly what you want when you bring in a player of Toews' stature. I mean, Dan, we were talking about the grin on Chevy's face from that picture as they put the jersey on Jonathan Toews. I mean, special for Cheveldayoff with the connection that he had winning his cup in Chicago at the beginning of Jonathan Toews, kind of taking over as the real leader of that team and the captain. Cheveldayoff spoke as well. I guess starting off with the Jonathan Toews signing, what more was sort of touched on in the availability with Chevy about how this all came together and what this means for the team?
Yeah, the part that stuck out to me, at least in the part that you guys carried, was the text he sent to Mark Chipman, or at least he said, Jonathan Toews is a Jet, and he was so thrilled to share that with Mark Chipman. And then you go to the scrum portion where he kind of alluded to, people are going to pencil in Jonathan Toews as a second line center, third line center, whatever the case might be, and that's something that the coach is going to have to decide. We've speculated on this show. Will he be a second line center? Will he be a third line center? That's something that Scott O'Neill is going to have to decide, and that's something that Kevin Cheveldayoff brought up in the scrum portion with the rest of the media there.
I'm sure it wasn't just about Toews when Chevy was speaking. What did he have to say about the breakup with fan favorite Nick Ehlers?
Yeah, I'll start with Cheveldayoff. He said that he found out the night before that all of us found out that Nikolaj Ehlers wouldn't be returning to the Winnipeg Jets. He didn't find out that it was going to be Carolina, but Nikolaj Ehlers did call him and let him know that he would not be returning to the Winnipeg Jets. And he called it an emotional conversation. And Scott O'Neill as well said that Nikolaj Ehlers was almost in tears sharing that news. And he was so appreciative of the time that he had here. Kevin Cheveldayoff was so appreciative of the time that he had here. And one thing I found really interesting, Huss, is Kevin Cheveldayoff said it didn't come down to term or money. So, obviously before July 1st, the Winnipeg Jets had the option to offer that 8th year that didn't materialize. But assuming the Winnipeg Jets offered, 8 by 8, 8 by 8.5, the deal the money that Nikolaj Ehlers left on the table, if the Winnipeg Jets did in fact offer that 8th year, is in the teens of millions. And Kevin Cheveldayoff here saying that it didn't come down to money or term, and he just needed a change of scenery. That's how I'm reading into things. But I did really find that interesting, that that's the angle, not only the emotional part of it, that Nikolaj Ehlers was very, very appreciative of his time in Winnipeg, loved the fans, loved the fan base, loved the organization, and ultimately just decided to go somewhere else outside of money and term, which I found really.
On a normal day at the end of the first week of July, we'd be spending all of our time talking about the development camp, which we barely touched on. But you, of course, were out there all week after Canada Day. I mean, just quick observations on what you picked up from the youngsters cutting their teeth and trying to put themselves in good standing heading into training camp.
Yeah, I'm going to start my development camp takeaways with, no one told Kevin He that this is supposed to be just like fun summer hockey. That guy has some Brandon Tanev in his game. Like, he is just constantly going all the time. And it was great to see, Brain Yeager, Colby Barlow, Boumedienne, the newest first-round draft pick, all on the ice, all competing against one another. Today was, a scrimmage day. They did 3-on-3s and 4-on-4s. So it was a little bit more of a competition today, I should say. And yeah, I mean, Kevin Cheveldayoff today in his scrum mentioned that he thinks Colby Barlow slimmed down a little bit, and he really likes how he looked at development camp. Alphonse Frey's put on some weight. We talked to Kieran Walton the other day and Zach Naring, who are both looking to get stronger and put on some weight this offseason. But to see all the players competing and, competing like it's a training camp scenario in certain drills, right? It is some fun summer hockey at times, but they're short area battles. It looks like they're competing for a spot out there. So it was nice to be down at development camp. The 3-on-3 was fun to watch. There were some highlight reel plays, of course, and seeing the Jets of tomorrow down at Hockey for All Center.
Connor, great stuff. Looking forward to more from you. Of course, for folks that if they've missed, Connor now full-time with Winnipeg Sports Talk and going to be doing a lot more down at the rink with us on the show. Of course, WST Sunday Live. And rumors around we might have some additional Bomber content, although what a week to start that up after that stinker last night in the Stampede Bowl. My God.
Maybe we'll push it another week, Huss. Maybe let's just wait. No, I am super fired up to begin the WST Bombers reports, as we would like to call it. WST Sunday Live, that's still every single Sunday at 9 a.m., but we're going to aim for every single Monday. Me and Zach Schnitzer, some of you know him as Schnitzy from Bonfire Sports Winnipeg. You joined them after the game. Bonfire Sports After Dark. A lot of you joined them last night as well. I was in the chat. I'm always in the chat for those post-game shows. So fired up to get going with Schnitzy on a little bit of Bombers content. We're going to be breaking down the games, previewing the upcoming week. And yeah, what a hell of a way to start with the Bombers getting kicked in the teeth and now heading into a bye, which I think is about the longest a bye week can be when you're 3-1, Huss. But it's better than 0-4, which is what they started last year. So we'll take that into the bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that perspective. That's a great point. It doesn't feel that way, but it could be worse. They were 0-4 last year and still ended up going to the Grey Cup. But that was a forgettable day for Winnipeg Jet fans all around yesterday. I normally do jump in with the guys on Bonfire after the game, but the Ehlers news combined with that turd of a football game, I just wanted to detach from all of it. I knew we'd get to it today. But I will say this, quite appreciative that the Jonathan Toews press conference was at 1 o'clock today, and we could kind of get in and focus on that and not dwell on everything that happened yesterday, although you knew we were going to touch on it. Have a great weekend. We will look forward to seeing you. You're going to be away a couple days. Remis is going to hold it down, and you'll be back later on next week while I'm away at Aiken. So have a good one. Enjoy the shows next week, and we'll look forward to the first WST Bomber Report coming up. Again, turn your notifications on, people, and pay attention to the Winnipeg Sports Talk social channels for more on the new content we're bringing to you here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Connor, have a great one, dude.
Thanks, you as well, guys. Have a good weekend.
We lots to get to right now. We are going to hook up with John Matisz, and then we will do marbles in about 20 minutes or so. Got to shout out our friends at Breezy Bend Golf and Country Club, checking in our Breezy Bend report right now. Final round of the Manitoba Mid-Am today. Really impressive top 10 going on right now. So good luck to everyone that's competing. May have some numbers by the end of the program as to how things are finishing up. Right now at the John Deere It is a 5-way tie for first. The Gim Reaper, Doug Gim, Max Homa, Brian Campbell, Davis Thompson, and Sam Stevens at the top of that list. Gotta go a ways down to find a Canadian flag on the leaderboard. Our guy Svenny, 2 under first round. He's at 4 under, looking to make the cut right now. The only Canadian on the right side of the cut line over at the John Deere. Don't forget, Manitoba Open coming up. There is room in the Pro-Am where you can play with 2 pros, one on the front 9 and one on the back 9 from the PGA Tour Americas the day before the tournament begins. Go to ManitobaOpen.com for more information and to reserve your team. Every player in the tournament is going to get a free tailor-made Spider putter valued at almost $500. Assiniboia Downs will be back next week. Next week is just Tuesday and Wednesday. Following week, though, special Monday racing on July 14th, as well as the 15th and 16th. Check out the entire live racing schedule and make an appointment to get into the dining room for a night of racing over at AssiniboiaDowns.com. And tough one for the Gold Eyes. Comeback win for the Fargo Moorhead Redhawks last night at Blue Cross Park. The teams now switch venues and go at it. Gold Eyes looking for revenge on the road as they begin their road trip after a fun week at home through Canada Day. 982 base, goldeyes.com for tickets, suites, maybe patio rentals like we did for Winnipeg Sports Talk. The Gold Eyes would love to help you out. Contact them at their 982 base or at goldeyes.com. All right, coming up right now, we're going to welcome in our pal John Matisz from The Score, get his thoughts on Toews, Ehlers, and some of the other big news coming out of free agency. This segment is brought to you by your Prairie Toyota dealers who want to remind you to get in and go with the Toyota Tundra. Quality that means it has the strength to take on any challenge, off-road or hauling a heavy load, and it's backed by the peace of mind knowing it's a Toyota. So take the road less traveled in comfort, room for teammate, friends, and gear, and turn heads everywhere you go with the amazing-looking Toyota Tundra. From $154 weekly for 6 months at 5.39% APR with $71.99 down. Hybrid options available as well. Visit shoptoyota.ca. All right, let's welcome in John Matisz from The Score. Keep an eye out in the chat. We'll open up Marbles registration in just a couple of minutes. John, what's happening? Great to have you back on the program.
Hey, Huss. Nice to be back on. And, you know, the dust has settled a little bit on free agency, but still plenty to talk about.
Yeah, listen, especially here in Winnipeg, of course, the introduction to Jonathan Toews today coming off of the bad news for the Winnipeg Jets yesterday that Nikolaj Ehlers, the belle of the ball after so many of the top free agents never really made it till July 1st, signed with the Carolina Hurricanes. What do you think about Ehlers as the number one name on the board going to the Canes?
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense if I'm looking at, you know, from his perspective. There's been a lot of talk about how he would like to go to a smaller market or perhaps a market with less spotlight on hockey players. Carolina certainly will provide that. And, you know, he's joining this team that is contending right now. Obviously, 7 straight seasons in the playoffs under Rod Brind'Amour. I believe they've won a series every single year. Haven't made the Cup final, so they're looking to go, you know, past that conference final round and get over the hump. So, you know, they're putting a lot of trust in him. That's a nice contract. I'm surprised he didn't go a little longer, get that 7th year, but perhaps there's some sort of reasoning behind that from him and his agent. I think the cap number is good for both the player and the team, and the fit's pretty good too. I mean, what does Carolina do? What do they like to do? They like to skate. They like to counter punch. They have a spot for him in their top 6, and as you know, Huss, you know, time on ice was hard to come by sometimes with Nick Ehlers and the Jets for whatever reason. So he's going to be unleashed there. You assume it goes well. I suppose we'll see. Because the thing with the Carolina Hurricanes is that when it comes to the playoffs, when the chips are down, they have trouble scoring goals. Can the dynamic playmaking of Nick Ehlers help with that? I'm sure it will. But is this, you know, a Mikko Rantanen play or a Jake Gensel play? No, it's, you know, a step down from that. But they also added Andre Miller to their back end. So, like, the Hurricanes are the top team in a pretty bad Metro division at this point in time. We'll see how things shake out before training camp. But once the rumors started flying on Ehlers and his preferred destinations, the Hurricanes made a ton of sense, and they somehow still have like $10 million in cap space, perhaps more. Just a team that's doing it different than other teams as far as contending, but having sort of that secondary timeline where they're always reloading with draft picks, always getting rid of bad contracts, and just able to pounce when it becomes necessary, like with Ehlers here. And Eric Tulsky in that group, it goes up to ownership with Tom Dundon. It feels like sometimes they're playing chess when everyone else is playing checkers.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it didn't feel like they were playing chess and everyone was playing checkers when they played the Florida Panthers.
No.
And the Panthers right now are the standard. And I mean, I think back to that series, it wasn't that the Canes were outskilled in a lot of ways. I mean, they got sort of taken out to the alley and left there. And that's why, if you were looking to match up against the Florida Panthers, I will say, like, focusing on Ehlers was interesting. I'm not sure he changes things very much, to be honest with you. Like, listen, is he going to be able to score goals and add something that Carolina, I think, already had? Some dynamic offensive power, absolutely. I do wonder how different things look if they get another crack at the Panthers with this group moving forward. But from the Ehlers perspective here, I mean, I heard a lot about that, about a quieter market. I'll be honest, I don't know how much I believe that. Like, Ehlers was, first of all, a fan favorite here, a media darling. I mean, he was never in the crosshairs at all. I mean, to call it white hot for him, I think is a little bit of a stretch. And I think a lot of it comes down to opportunity usage of being one of the top players. And I'm sure they told him that in it. I do wonder whether Svechnikov or Jarvis comes off that top line, because the irony of the whole thing is that if he's not on that top line, he's going to be playing like Jesperi Kotkaniemi or something like that. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure that that's a better situation than he had here in Winnipeg. But you can imagine that a lot of people are just disappointed because of what he meant to this team and what a popular player he was, and the hole that the Jets now have in their top six with Nick Ehlers walking out the building.
Yeah, it's tough, especially, obviously a lot of buzz around Jonathan Toews, especially today. But I would caution Jets fans to slow their roll, just as far as like expectations. This guy is coming off, 2-year layoff? I don't have the exact timing in my on the top of my head right here, but like, it doesn't matter how you could be Sidney Crosby, you could be Connor McDavid. If you take off that much time and it's for a health related reason, who knows what you're going to look like. Mind you, Patrick Kane came back after a somewhat similar situation in terms of age and being out of the league for a while, and he's looked pretty good. Like, he's not prime Patrick Kane, but I also think no one's expecting prime Jonathan Toews either. So when it comes to Toews and his fit on the Jets, like, it just is. It comes down to, for me, is he a second-line center or is he a third-line center? As far as you look across the league and compare him objectively to the other 2Cs and 3Cs out there, I would hedge that he's, a third-line center, just, to keep expectations a little lower than you just don't want to be disappointed. But the ceiling there is obviously a 2C. Other than that, the Jets famously are not the type of team to make splashes on July 1. This is not a surprise. It's been the story of their franchise history, basically. And that's fine. Like, there's a lot of mistakes made on July 1, and they have these RFAs to sign, and they have, $20 million left in cap space. They should have some money going into the season, which is helpful come the deadline. And we'll see how things shake out with this weird situation we find ourselves in as observers of the NHL, where there's like 2 or 3 teams that are really bad and not going in the upward direction. And then every other team is trying to get better or is already a contender. It's very strange where there's not, besides maybe the Penguins, there's no like tanking team. So what does that look like as far as not only wins and losses, but also come trade deadline? Is there a team like, I don't know, the Calgary Flames that are just selling off because even though they come into the season with best intentions, they realize it's better to get rid of our best players and hopefully get into the McKenna sweepstakes. So there's sort of like, I feel like the Jets are one of those teams right now where I can't quite get a full handle on them as far as the finished product. And also, let's not forget that there's some serious upside in some of their younger players, and they're going to need a lot of them to level up, whether that's Velarde or Perfetti or Lambert or Barron or Sandberg. Like, are all of them going to, break through and be better versions of themselves next year? Maybe not. But as we saw with, say, the Washington Capitals last year, sometimes things just click into place all at the same time. And you've got rocket fuel on what's already a pretty good team, a pretty high floor team. So yeah, if you're a Jets fan, you're probably thinking like, oh, here we go again, not the most exciting offseason, and we lose Ehlers. Like, not only that, but we lose this speedy playmaking player that is a fan favorite and not much to kind of bring in to replace him. But this is, I guess, in a lot of ways, life as a Jets fan.
Well, listen, I think we all know there's far more big mistakes than big homers hit on the 1st of July. So, but that being said, I mean, I think the Jets certainly, would have had that same deal on the table for Nikolaj Ehlers to keep him here, potentially at another year or two. So, I mean, it is disappointing. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Now, I will say this. I'm betting on Jonathan Toews as opposed to betting against him this year. But I granted that there's a wide range of outcomes of how this could work. The bottom line is that, like, I don't think that he goes through what he's done to come back to be just a shadow of what he used to be. I mean, I really do think that, he believes, and I guess, a lot of athletes do have that confidence, and, you still have to back it up. But everything that he's done to get to this point. But his performance and how he looks, and it might not be in the first month. I mean, this team is good enough to win some games and be in that mix. Later on in the season, I think is really going to be crucial. But what you mentioned about maybe not making additions to this club right now, but waiting until the season, I think is a really astute one, John, in that we don't see the teams that are obviously tanking right now, but we're going to start seeing them once we get into that season.
There's a lot of buzz, a lot of commentary about, again, the weird spot that the league's in as far as like the pecking order. You've got like whatever, your handful of like true contenders that, Florida, Carolina, Vegas, whatever, that are just so firmly in win now mode. Then you've got a huge chunk of like 15 teams that are either, coming back with a similar team and are going to make the playoffs because they're just that good, or they're a team that's been rebuilding for a while and they're not going in the negative direction. At least they're not going to try to go in the negative direction. They're going to try and level up. There's only, but at the end of the day, like when every team goes out and plays games, there's a winner and a loser, right? So after a month or two, does this very small group of teams that are perceived to be sellers or on the downturn turn into more like 10 teams? And are there GMs there that have a fair amount of security that go, okay, this is a great time to transition to a rebuild or retool, whatever you want to call it. It's the Gavin McKenna draft, and behind McKenna, there's other prospects that are totally worthy of throwing our hat in the ring for. So I wonder if that happens. And hey, even within the Central Division where the Jets play, I mean, obviously Dallas is one of those sort of top tier contenders. Colorado, even though they haven't done much and have cleared space and haven't filled it, they're lurking and they're certainly not on the downturn. Utah is rising, but then you've got St. Louis, Nashville, Minnesota. There's at least one of those teams that I feel like is going to go into seller mode by the trade deadline or sooner. And then obviously Chicago is a team that wants to improve, but let's face it, like I said, there's only so many. Nothing. Yeah, there's only so many wins out there. By improve, I mean like they just don't want to keep going in the wrong direction because you have Connor Bedard there, and at some point this kid's going to get sick of losing, right? It becomes a bit of a clock that starts there. But no, Chicago is by no means going to be good. So even within the Central, it's a pretty good reflection of the league where you've got your contenders, and I would put Winnipeg, maybe slightly below the Dallas and Colorado tier. But then you've got teams that could kind of go in either direction as far as they come into the season optimistic about their chances, but then reality hits a couple months in.
John Matisz of The Score with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. What's the aftermath of free agency and the departure of Mitch Marner in the GTA? it doesn't seem like he'll be getting the warmest of welcomes when he comes back with the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah, like I don't know about you, Huss, and what you've been paying attention to in this busy time in the sports calendar, but I caught glimpses of that Vegas press conference, and this guy looked like he had a piano taken off his back. Like he looked, you saw his full smile for the first time in a while, and he's just like, kind of loose, and it's crazy. And that's not anything against the Toronto market, but I think it's just the baggage that was following him around. I'm sure, he'd be walking down the street and people would be yelling at him. Like it got so toxic around Marner, and it, part of it deserved, a lot of opportunities in playoffs to come through as a superstar in the regular season, and he didn't deliver. But it also, got a little out of hand as far as the blame being placed solely on him in some circles. So, the Vegas obviously does a sign and trade with Toronto, and they're in their own, like we love to talk about, Toronto's cap troubles over the years with the core four. It's ironically, Marner is joining a team that's going to have similar problems with Eichel coming up and already having a bunch of like $8 million, $7 million players signed. So they're going to be backfilling their roster in a similar way that Toronto has over the years, where you're trying to hit on these, entry level or bargain bin guys. And, sometimes that doesn't work. And sometimes it comes back to bite you in the playoffs. So there's that aspect to it. But then from Toronto's perspective, they got Nick Waugh out of this sign and trade. I think that's a huge win. Usually, if you look at like Jake Gensel getting traded, for example, I believe he got traded for a third round pick when he went from Carolina to Tampa before Tampa signed him. So to get essentially a third line center in Nick Waugh, who has some potential to be a second line center, given he hasn't been deployed and used to his potential in Vegas, that's a big win for Brad Treliving. And then you go down the list of other big wins for Treliving. Tavares' contract, that's a deal. Nyes' contract, that's going to age really well. I think getting Machelli from Utah, that was smart. But what they're trying to do here is very difficult, trying to replace Mitch Marner. Like, all playoff troubles aside, this guy's rough. He's been producing at roughly 100-point rate while also providing Selke trophy level defense. I mean, regular season wise, he's a top 10 player if we look over his body of work the last handful of years. And he plays a ton, like 20 plus minutes. So that's a lot to replace. And the thing with Toronto right now is their roster's incomplete, and Brett Treliving knows it. He's out trying to find a top six forward. We'll see if that comes to fruition before training camp or if that's an in-season ad. But yeah, I think the way that I would describe it, like if I'm a Leafs fan sitting at home, it would be like almost bittersweet this offseason so far, where we're finally moving on from Mitch Marner because that clearly wasn't working. They shouldn't have re-signed him, and they didn't. But then you see him all happy. You realize, what you're missing in, this 100-point player with Selke defense. And, you're bringing in some help, but it's not complete. So it's a bit of a weird time, I think, to be a Leafs fan.
Hey, what did you think of what Stan Bowman and the Oilers did in the offseason? And do you think that pushed things forward as far as making sure Connor McDavid knows that Edmonton's the place that he should be sticking around long term?
Yeah, I don't think they've done enough. I don't think McDavid is sitting there thinking, give me that blank check that you're going to give me and I'll sign it right now. I don't think it's a surprise that it's July 4th, or I don't think it's a coincidence, I should say, that it's July 4th and he hasn't signed his extension yet when he's eligible. I think he's probably waiting to see if they can shake something loose on the goalie market. Like, guys, I like Huss, I don't know about you, but I don't think that they can just trot out Stuart Skinner again as the only viable option, I should say, for another year going into the playoffs. Like, it's fine if you keep him in a tandem, but you need to have some sort of new blood there. I'm sorry. Like, and I'm sure Connor's thinking the same thing. Like, I'm sure he's like, I love Stuart Skinner. He's my buddy, but like, it's been 2 years that we go to the final and it just isn't enough. And then obviously around the edges of the roster, you would have liked to see them do more so far. So yeah, I mean, I feel like Stan Bowman's work is certainly not done. And, that starts with that McDavid extension, but even the roster as is, yeah, I don't look at it and go, oh, they're guaranteed to end up back in the final against Florida for a third
I really
year.
think that McDavid's going to sign a 2 or a 3 year extension. And that's going to get him to like 31, 32. And at that point, if they won, they're close, or he thinks that is the place, he can ink the 8 years after that, or potentially consider another spot. But I do think he'll be back for more than just next year.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense from his perspective where you can really cash in. Let's say he signs for $16 million times 2, so $32 million over 2 years. That's a lot of money. And you're putting the pressure on the team like, listen, I'm committed for 2 years. What are you guys doing around me? Obviously, Draisaitl's here. That's fantastic. But the rest of the roster needs work. Obviously, Bouchard, too, is now signed. I suppose that's one thing we forgot in the Bowman discussion, that he did get that done, and that's important. He's sort of part of it's a three-headed monster there in Edmonton with Bouchard, McDavid, and Draisaitl. But you're totally right, Huss. Like, if I'm his agent, I say short term, and leave the door open for that last long-term deal if you want to be an Oiler for life. And like, a lot can change in 2 years. Like, things could go extremely well. They could win their first cup. Things could go sideways. Maybe they hit their peak as a group going to the cup final twice in a row. Like, we shouldn't forget that. It's as much as it's a huge accomplishment for the Edmonton Oilers to make back-to-back cup finals. They may have fumbled the bag in a lot of ways where, yes, you give the Panthers a ton of credit, but like, this is a 32-team league. It's possible that whether McDavid's injured, Draisaitl's injured, or things just don't go their way in the playoffs in terms of bounces, that they don't end up even in the conference final over the next 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, listen, as of right now, the Edmonton Oilers are the team in the West, and everyone's chasing them, but everyone's chasing the Florida Panthers, who, of course, did some pretty nice business after winning a second cup, bringing the entire crew back, including Brad Marchand on that 6-year deal that's going to take him through 43-44. John, great to have you on the program as always, man. You be well. Enjoy the weekend,
Yes.
and we'll catch up soon.
Thanks for having me on, Huss. Have a good one. Talk soon.
All right, good stuff with John Matisz. All right, gang, it is marbles time. You've got 30 seconds to get your entry in. If you just popped in late, I'm pretty sure everyone's already registered, though. !marbles in the chat. Remo, if you want to wrap that up and get the list ready to go, I will move over to get into the Coolbet lines. We got CFL. It was a dark day for me personally. I always loved the 4th of July. Nathan's hot dog eating contest. We get to witness greatness. But Joey Chestnut, I think it was not ideal eating conditions. We had some slow buns this year. Finished with 70.5, which was the under. One off the over-under of hot dogs and buns eaten, which was listed at Coolbet as 71.5. So, listen, credit where credit is due. We're witnessing history. Probably the greatest, most dominant athlete of our generation, Joey Chestnut, with a 17th mustard belt, but no record this year, and no over for the bettors who believed in Joey on the 4th of July. Couple things just quickly before we get to the notes on Coolbet. We are so fired up. We've kind of expanded our relationship with Coolbet in conjunction with Connor coming on board. And I'm away next week, but the following week, we are continuing to add to the programming on the Winnipeg Sports Talk channel. We'll have some new WST Best Bets shows where we'll have some more time. We'll kind of dive in, very similar to what Pat, Jake, and I did together on the Lock Shop before, right here on WST. Coming out of the following weekend, we'll be hitting some Major League Baseball futures and the Home Run Derby on the Monday. And then the Wednesday of that week, in all likelihood, because we'll be doing CFL 110 on Tuesday, Patty and I, Pat, maybe the hottest golf bettor around, we'll dive into our best bets for the Open Championship, the final major of the year over at Royal Portrush. We'll have best bets every week for the National Football League, which will be a hell of a lot of fun. Myself, Remis, and Connor will be doing some unique hockey content as well outside of the regular shows. So another great reason to turn your notifications on and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. But really excited to take this to the next level with Pat, Jake, and our great partners at Coolbet who have been with us since day one here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. As far as what's cracking tonight, I cannot get over how much this line has moved in the Toronto-Hamilton game. The Argos opened as a 2-point favorite. Hamilton are now 4-point favorites in this game. 6-point line movement, which is pretty strange because we knew Bo Levi would be playing all along. We knew Chad Kelly wasn't going to be playing. I liked Hamilton when it was a pick'em. I think I like Toronto now that it's +4. The money line, which was, as I said, a pick'em 2 days ago, now Hamilton -222, and the Argos +180. 4 points is the point spread right now at Hamilton. Now, the other two games this weekend, tomorrow's game in Montreal, BC, Nathan Rourke will start against the Alouettes with MBT. No Davis Alexander for another week. The Alouettes are still 2.5-point favorites. If you like BC, +123 on the money line for the Lions. Alouettes -149. And then the Sunday game, the Elks looking for their first win. Elks +118 on the money line. 2-point home dogs. The Red Blacks money line -143 and 2-point favorites on the road. Don't forget, every week at Coolbet for CFL, you have one wager where you can put on the 30% win boost. I actually just did that with the Argos +4, Elks to win, BC to win. Actually turned into a pretty nice one. Let me just see. Yeah, +832. And I put 20 on it. And then when you add in the win boost, it's an extra $50. So if you want to ride with me, use the 30% banger on that one. Argos +4, Elks and BC both to win. That is the CFL story for tonight. We do have one big game on the weekend in the Gold Cup. It's the final between the USA and Mexico. To win the trophy, Mexico -118, USA even money at +100. The 90-minute numbers: Mexico +140, USA +225, and a draw +205 on the weekend. And I guess we got to get to the majors because, Remo, the Blue Jays are red hot. They are back, and they are first place right now in the AL East after a sweep of the New York Yankees. And the Jays open a series at home against the Angels tonight. Jays -147 favorites on the money line, and the Angels +125. Gold Eyes, as I mentioned, lost yesterday. They're back at it against Fargo after both teams headed down I-29. Gold Eyes even money tonight, +100. Fargo Moorhead Redhawks -133. Of course, you got Wimbledon odds going on right now. Amazing match going on between Sabalenka and Emirata County right now. They're in a first set tiebreaker, but you can get your action in on the soccer, the tennis, Major League Baseball, CFL, and of course the NHL futures are up right now. Post free agency, Florida Panthers are your cup favorite at 6-1. Edmonton 7-1. Now with Nikolaj Ehlers, the Canes moved to 8-1, and the Jets 20-1 right now, behind only New Jersey, Tampa, Vegas, Dallas, Colorado, and the aforementioned Panthers, Oilers, and Hurricanes. If you haven't played a Coolbet before, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. Make sure to check those promotions tabs. And yes, I'm going to be out of Breezy tomorrow. It is the Breezy Bend qualifier for the RBC Scramble, letting people know how they can get in the Coolbet draw for that incredible trip for you and 3 buddies to get up to 2 of the nicest courses on the planet at Cabot out in Nova Scotia in a couple of months. Check the promotions tab. There's always a lot of great things going on over with our friends at Coolbet. All right. It is marbles time right now. And let's fire it up with a little Tristan Rivers music to officially get the festivities underway.
Yeah, I got to pick the music. I've already picked the track. I'll go with this.
It's Friday. Another week of work's gone by. You deserve to treat yourself. Maybe an ice cream cake or a bottle of rye. Phone the whole day, so lax you can't deny. Why use effort even for pleasure? Give blind luck a try. It's time to do a marble race. Knows you're separating best to worst. Marble race. Just like marbles with the punctuation first. Marble race. Don't spare or you will suffer. Get to your mark before it's too late. Set go.
All right, marbles time on WST. Everyone's here. Stanley Cup champion Brad Marchand in the chat right now. All fired up. I mean, he's a big DQ guy. He said, good idea, ice cream cake. I have a feeling that the ice cream cakes are in high demand right now. It is steamy out there. Just looking at where we're at right now for the weather heading into the weekend while Remis gets this set up. We got a heat warning. We got a severe thunderstorm watch. And we have 32 degrees in the city of Winnipeg. WST, Winnipeg Storm Talk, quick segment while Remis gets this set up. What do we have here? Conditions favorable for the development of severe thunderstorm that could capable of producing strong wind gusts, large hail, and heavy rain. Expected to develop early this afternoon and will track east into Ontario early this evening. So keep your heads up for severe weather right now. And I wouldn't mind just to come in, get a big dump, give us a little bit of thunder and lightning, and then cool it down a little bit. Get to some AC or a pool right now because it is steamy and it looks like it's going to be that way throughout the weekend as tomorrow actually should be beautiful. Mix of sun and cloud and 25. So that's perfect. But right now, severe thunderstorm watch, heat warning, and it is a steamy 32. All right, Remo, where are we going today? And how many marbles are in the race?
Okay, we had 264 marbles, and then I added you, and I gave one to Jonathan Toews, as we've been discussing the press conference today. Throughout the show, played it earlier. Very exciting stuff. Nice talking with Connor as well. And
yeah, no marble for Ehlers today for anyone that was suggesting it. Ehlers not getting a marble. We will give him a marble, though, when he returns to Winnipeg as a Carolina Hurricane at some point next week. So we'll save the welcome back marble for Ehlers till later on. Today, it's Toews that gets the marble as the newest member of the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, just on Ehlers, I'm seeing a bunch of comments in chat. I don't think any Jets fan or anything should feel any hatred towards Ehlers or feel like he's a traitor or something like that. He gave 10 years to the Winnipeg Jets. He earned the right to become a free agent and pick his employer. And you get drafted by a team, you're pretty much stuck with them for 7 years or whatever it is until you become a free agent. And look, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. He felt like what Cheveldayoff said is he needed a change of scenery. That's what he told Scott Arniel. And he earned that right. And look, a lot of great play here, great memories, and interested to see, how it works out for him in Carolina, if it's going to be a fit there or not. I'll be following from here, but we're going to be following the Winnipeg Jets as they try to follow up their President's Trophy winning season. Sometimes we forget that. President's Trophy winners, Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, listen, you're exactly right. Nikolaj Ehlers did absolutely give us 10 great years. He earned his right to choose where he wanted to be. Said that he just needed to change his scenery. Doesn't mean fans have to like it. So I get why people are disappointed right now. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And the team moves forward. And of course, a big part of that moving forward was the big announcement today with getting Toews into the mix.
Yeah, I called him. I said I don't think he's a traitor. Then everyone is writing and disagree and calling him a traitor. Look, I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say. I'm guessing next week when it's no longer holiday weekend in the U.S. So we'll be stay tuned to when it comes out of Nikolaj Ehlers' mouth. I guess it'll be me here next week. You're going to be gone.
You'll be holding it down for the first couple days. You can see if I can grab some assistance. Connor's away for a couple days and then already taking holidays. Can you believe that, folks? Jeez. No, he already knew that he was heading out for a big concert for a couple days, and then the boys will take us through the rest of the week, and then I'll be back on the 14th, the following Monday. All right, here we go. The abstract freezing abyss.
Yeah, this was a decent one.
New, and look at this. You can see where we're starting, and you can also see some more parts of it. All right, well, let's get to it. Without further ado, good luck to everyone. Shout out to Shipman Associates for our Champions hoodies, which whoever gets first across the line will be getting one. Good luck to all. May the best marble win. Let's kick off the weekend with the marble race on WST. All right, long ramp into... I'm always a sucker for the big funnel start, Reem.
It's good.
I like the Plinkos. I mean, but to me, the full funnel start reminds me of one of our first and all-time classic courses, the funnel. A similar start right now. Looks like Former Brain is the first one there. No. Colorado Lowe's, Drew Music, and Renee Dandino first up. All right, we got a major... Oh, Bailey the intern popping in, and Frosty Winnipeg first out. Julian Labossiere. Winnipeg Jets and Al Broderick. Oh, Hustler! Damn! Just got thrown over the top rope already. But Bailey the intern, fresh off, meeting Ty Bauer at development camp today, is in first place. And great to have Bailey back. School's out. Means that she'll be a regular here on WST. Bailey, Frosty, Julian, Sean Clark, Amy Weeb, your top 5 right now. All right, Bailey's dropped in and is first place. Frosty right behind her. They've sort of separated themselves a little bit, but the rest of this lead pack now coming in. A number of obstacles really slowing this one down. So if we were at Assiniboia Downs, we'd call this a muddy track, Remo. Not getting major speed so far, but is Bailey going to get through or no? She's getting knocked around by that. And look, Peg City Hawks fan. It would make sense that a Peg City Hawks fan's in the place today with the news of Jonathan Toews. Peg City Hawks fan is, in fact, in first ahead of Julian and Amy Weeb. Frosty Winnipeg now in second place. Moving on to this next obstacle. Peg City in first. Frosty Winnipeg just got bounced. Ishaboy Bruce also bounced. Peg City Hawk fan right now, though, in first place. Julian trying to see if he can make up the difference. Coach Mike as well. Spency. But here's Peg City Hawks fan going to get shot through the field goal post, and Peg City Hawks fan. Appropriate day for a Peg City Hawks fan who now is going to need to change themselves to Peg City Jets fan because your boy Jonathan Toews is now one of ours. Spency in second. Tyson Ducharme in third. Look at these names at the top of the list. Julian Labossiere had a great run. He finished up in fourth. The Herbster in fifth. Kent Reimer sixth. Coach Mike seventh. Bailey the intern. Great performance, Bay. She's in eighth. Drew Music 9. And Winnipeg Chaster finishing up the top 10 for today's marble race. We are just about done. There we are. Peg City Hawks fan 45. Peg City, give us an email. Fire it off, winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com. Let us know what size you are, and I will be back in a week, and you can pick that up afterwards. All right, rest of the winners today. Number 11, King Kenny. Is that Ken Weeb's new handle? King Kenny? I'm not sure about that. Nicely done, though, to King Kenny, 11th place. You got Jay Miller. There's Amy Weeb, Sean Clark, Seabreeze, Wicked John in 20th. There's Scott Westman. There's Tristan Rivers Music. What's going on? Sharpie Dog's in there. Who we got? No Frills Demo. And there's Candace Jane. A lot of the regular chatters with big performances today. Bravo Bride. Duck Dad from the EST crew. What's up, Duck Dad? There's Farmer Brain, former winner, Ty Petcow, Rob Mahoney, very active in chat today. Coachy 51, Jen B, Poopy Pants, Ray, Coops, Tango, and Cruiser 24. 71 marbles. It's interesting how many. I guess there's probably a lot of people that got burned by the fire again, just because it took a little while to get through. And once someone is finished, then the fire starts eating people up that are a little slow on the track.
Yeah, I think that first cylinder or thing that you have to go around probably slowed everyone down. There's just so many marbles. I don't think these tracks are built for 266 marbles, so you're gonna run into stuff like that. So. A lot of DNFs today. And you mentioned, I see so many regular chatters. Well, I think we have such a large community. I almost feel like everyone. You can go down the list, and I recognize all the names. So we're always going to have, and we're pretty thankful for such a great turnout today and everyone in the community. It was awesome. It was a fun celebration of the Jonathan Toews press conference. People here watching along with it. And, biggest numbers that we've had for a while in our chat. So this is awesome. And, next week the Bombers are off. We'll still have reaction from Jets free agency. Ooh, we got to wait for, we're on Jack Roslovic. Watch, bring him home, right?
Yeah, well, we'll see about that. Duck Dad, what's up, us? Just absorbing this news of more sport market content coming. Yeah, a lot of the stuff, we had a lot of fun on EST with Pat and Jake. I'll be doing with the fellas here. And, of course, Remis and Connor will be very involved in our hockey content, but we're going to have fun. I'm going to do some previews from a betting content for WrestleMania and SummerSlam. So a lot of really fun stuff coming up with the Coolbet guys and some great contests too that you're going to want to be in. By the way, I am away next week, but for all of you people that joined us for the WST Poker, Pat Mayo, our pal, the PME on X, Pat is doing a tourney on Tuesday, July the 8th. That's the night for the Mayo tournament. If you go in to the poker and just go to tournaments and search Mayo, 2 more spots in the final for the Coolbet Open. So if you weren't able to play last night in the qualifiers, or you missed the WST one, or you just fell short, you got one more chance. That is Tuesday. You'll have to check the time, but just give them a follow at the PME. You'll see that, or you can simply go in and check it out on Coolbet. That is going to do it for us today, folks. A very busy week with lots happening, but a big day for the Winnipeg Jets, and what a cool scene that was down at Canada Life Center to welcome back Jonathan Toews as a member of the Winnipeg Jets. Thanks to John Matisz, who jumped on. Thanks to Connor, who will be in at the end of the week when he returns with Michael Remis, who's going to be holding it down all week while I'm at Aikens Lake. And, of course, thanks to Jeff Hamilton. There will be CFL 110 next week, Tuesday at the regular time. Remo will jump in for me and handle that as well. Stay cool, stay hydrated, have a great weekend. Thanks again to Remo and Connor for holding it down next week while I'm at Aikens. I'll be back a week Monday, but make sure you join us for a full recap of the weekend. First place, Blue Jays, Bombers on the bye week, and more reaction to Jonathan Toews signing here in Winnipeg on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Thanks again to everyone that supports the show, all of our sponsors, and everyone hanging out today right through to the end of the marble race. Have a great weekend, gang. See you Monday right here on WST.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.